loud in my ears, I guess. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Captain Quasar, and welcome back to another live stream. We're just gonna hop right back into where I ended off yesterday. If you are interested in seeing the first 11 pages of the Caseyron, for some reason, if you really care about Caseyron and you want to go see the beginning of this document, you can go check out my stream from yesterday. But where we ended off was, I guess I should say what I'm doing. It's kind of pretty clear, but I'm going to be reading through the different legal stuff about all the, lawsuit documents. You get it. You get it. So where we left off was Hassan being compared and contrasted to al-Husseini. And then there were some images of al-Husseini meeting Adolf Hitler. And I didn't want to be the guy to say this, but in this picture, al-Husseini kind of looks like Dan. I don't want to be that guy, but I'm just at least a little bit. But yeah, we'll just keep moving right along. Yeah, I think this is exactly where it was. Yes. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't skipping ahead on anything. But this is a quote by al-Husseini. Arabs rise as one man and fight for your sacred rights. Kill the Jews wherever you find them. This pleases God, history, and religion. This saves your honor. God is with you. Al-Husseini, March 1st, 1944, on Nazi radio. On October 12th, 2023, the last episode of Leftovers aired. It was comprised of a discussion between Ethan and Hassan regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict and the events of October 7th. During the discussion, Ethan expressed his support of the Palestinian cause and empathy for their suffering, along with condemning Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. At the same time, Ethan attempted to humanize the victims of October 7th to Hassan in a hope that empathy and mutual understanding could begin to heal the divide. Hassan was unpersuaded, and the relationship with Ethan and Hassan began to deteriorate. It's interesting I guess it's like you have to paint the whole picture before you can get into what, before you can get too far into why what she's doing is egregious. But in the aftermath of the falling out between Ethan and Hassan, H3 Snark became a radioactive hub of fallen fans of TEI content and the clients. It became a focal point for spreading vicious lies, outlandish conspiracy theories, and hallucinatory misrepresentations about the clients. The rampant copyright infringement on H3 Snark. Despite their hatred towards the clients, the users of H3 Snark had an insatiable appetite for TEI content. The H3 Snark users, however, did not want TEI to receive any views or advertising revenue for their consumption of TEI's content. As a result, H3 Snark became a locus of copyright infringement of TEI content, as detailed below. It is time to get quazy, and I can tell that reading through 3 80-page documents will be a little quazy. Well, this one's only 60 pages, so it should be easy. And I mean, we got a lot of images too, so it's like nothing. On YouTube, I like how that's spelled. Was this meant to be JewTube? Interesting. But one method of the H3 Snark mods employed to consume TEI content was to share links of TEI content on YouTube, a website that provides unauthorized access. Oh, that's what it is. I didn't know that was even a thing. YouTube, a website that provides unauthorized access to YouTube? What does that even mean? That just sounds so stupid. Is it literally so you don't give people views? Is that literally its purpose? I guess I was just the one being anti-Semitic. But that provides unauthorized access to YouTube videos and publicly performs them, which constitutes copyright infringement. See Hunley v. Instagram LLC. YouTube had particular appeal to H3 Snark mods and H3 Snark users because the video watched on YouTube does not result in a view or advertising revenue to the original on YouTube. H3 Snark mods conducted live chats when TEI content was broadcast live. During the live chats, the H3 Snark mods would spam the chat with YouTube links of the broadcast. Once the live stream ended, the H3 Snark mods concealed the evidence of their copyright infringement by deleting the live chat logs. Below are true and correct screenshots of the H3 Snark mods spamming the live chat with YouTube links to TEI copyrighted content. H3 Snark live chat. What was this? This was a Reddit live chat. Good job, guys. I just love it. It's like, are you all teenagers? Did none of you pay attention when they told you that like all of this stuff gets saved? Like, not always. It's not all saved all the time, but a lot of like data gets stored for quite a bit, even if you want to just like, if you're like gonna delete it from your personal devices. I almost forgot I was going to be reading these too. Through various comments to posts, Doe number 3 user Sarah Horn Jewitts encouraged H3 Snark users to use YouTube as an alternative to watching the TEI's videos, or the TEI's video on its official site, or on its official channel. Doe number 3 comments were later wiped due to Doe number 3's efforts. The user was anointed as one of the H3 Snark mods. Some examples are contained below. In August 2024, the user Pearl Unicorn created the post, "For those who wonder why snarkers watch, moments like the second button failure." Below is a true and correct screenshot of Doe number 3 stating, "We encourage folks to watch on YouTube since it doesn't play ads or contribute to their view count." As can be noted, Doe number 3's comment was subsequently wiped from August 2024 post. For those who wonder why snarkers watch, what's the I'm confused as to what they mean by the second button failure. Is that when Ethan was like, "Come on, we're trying to go home, we have kids." Aww. Him being a terrible boss. But anyways, on August 28th, 2024, the H3 Snark moderators created a post entitled Megathread, the H3 show, August 28th, 2024. Below is a true and correct screenshot of Doe number 3 providing a link to the TEI video Content Court Jack Doherty H3 show number 48 on YouTube. As can be noted, Doe number 3's comment has been wiped from the August 28, 2024 post. Megathread, yada yada yada, and then watch on YouTube. Epic. Epic stuff, guys. Under the H3 Snark wiki page for tools tips guides, H3 Snark mods also instructed H3 Snark users on how to create clips of TEI content so these clips could be posted on H3 Snark. At one point, the H3 Snark mods even instructed users how to download members-only content, i.e. TEI content only accessible to paying members, so that they could be posted on H3 Snark. To hide their inducement of copyright infringement, the H3 Snark mods deleted, I'm assuming they just meant the post, yeah, or deleted the section. Interesting. How to download videos. Any platform, downloader 2. While Doe number 3's post just contained a hyperlink labeled "Watch on YouTube," the link would direct users to, do I click this? Portion of downloaded members-only content from the guide. I guess I won't click that so I don't get a copyright strike. But a true and correct screenshot of the portion regarding members-only content is provided below. TEI issues takedown notice for infringing posts and comments on H3 Snark. TEI began to fight back against the copyright infringements on H3 Snark by issuing takedown notices pursuant to 17 USC section 512C3 DMCA takedowns. TEI was extremely surgical about which H3 Snark posts would be subject to DMCA takedowns, relying on the most pertinent fair use decisions. TEI issued DMCA takedowns only for 1. Posts, comments that uploaded an entire TEI episode onto Reddit, particularly paywall TEI content. 2. Comments that provided a YouTube link to entire episodes of TEI content. Or 3. Posts that contained a clip of TEI content with a descriptive non-critical title and the comments were locked by the H3 Snark mods, or there were no comments after several hours. Interesting. LOL, don't know if I was the only one who did it, but I tipped off Avery about the Snarkers restreaming the shows. I mean, you could be one of the saving graces, you know what I mean? Because it's hard to keep track of everything, so it kind of does take, it takes an army. It takes a village to raise a baby, or whatever that saying is. And in this case, Ethan Klein is the baby. Nah, yeah. Shout out the D33J, or the Deej, if that's how it's supposed to be said. But August 1st, 2024, DMCA takedown. On August 1st, 2024, TEI issued a DMCA takedown for the H3 Snark post entitled H3 Live Show Behind the Scenes. The post contained a complete version of TEI's video H3 Podcast BTS number 53, which was members-only content, i.e. accessible only to paying members of the H3 Podcast YouTube channel. On August 2nd, 2024, i.e. 1 day later, Reddit honored this DMCA takedown. August 30th, 2024, DMCA takedown. On August 30th, 2024, TEI issued a DMCA takedown for a comment by Doe number 3 on the H3 Snark post entitled Mega Thread The H3 Show, August 28th, 2024. The 8/30/2024 takedown, the comment contained a YouTube link to the TEI video content court Jack Doherty, H3 number 48. On September 9th, 2024, i.e. 9 days later. Reddit honored the 8/30/24 takedown. September 18th, 2024, DMCA takedown. On September 18th, 2024, TEI issued a DMCA takedown for the H3 Snark post entitled Ethan and Dan confirm that posting to Snark will get you banned. The 9/18/24 takedown. The post solely comprised of a clip from the TEI video Ethan Debates Anti-Semitic Sneeko Fan, H3 Show number 55. The post contained no comments because the H3 Snark mods locked the post. Reddit never informed TEI whether the 9/18/24 takedown was honored. November 22nd, 2024 DMCA takedown. On November 22nd, 2024, TEI issued 2 DMCA takedowns. The first DMCA takedown was for the H3 Snark post. Ethan talks positively about Celebrity Poker Tour sponsor, a sports gambling app named Fliff H3 Show number 83. The post contained a clip from the TEI video We Play Poker with Ninja, Impractical Jokers, and More, H3 Show number 83. The post contained 2 comments. Dude, your flair is actually fucking frying me right now. Original spelling. And 2, the downfall is real, man. The post contained no further comments because the H3 Snark mods locked the post. On November 29th, 2024, i.e. 7 days later, Reddit informed TEI that it honored this DMCA takedown. The second DMCA takedown was for the H3 Snark post entitled Ethan describes his issues with Hassan as personal beef. This post contained a clip from the TEI video entitled Logan Paul posted fucking insane cringe at H3 Show number 84. At the time this DMCA takedown was issued, The post had been up for over 2 hours and had no comments at that time, but 130 upvotes. On December 5th, 2024, i.e. nearly 2 weeks later, Reddit informed TEI that it honored this DMCA takedown. November 26, 2024, DMCA takedowns. On November 26, 2024, TEI issued 2 DMCA takedowns. First takedown. The first DMCA takedown was for the H3 Snark post. LB says, far leftist, hate Israel because Israel is backed by the West, and this can lead to anti-Semitism. Ethan agrees, then says freedom of religion, speech, press, and to control what happens in your own workspace would be under state control in communism. H3 show number 85. Original spelling in brackets. Yes, I understand this is the original spelling, and I'm kind of confused as to what this even means. Ethan agrees, then says freedom of religion, speech, press, and to control what happens in your own workspace would be under state control in communism. Oh, okay. I kind of get what this is trying to say, but that's... I guess the phrasing on it is just kind of weird, but I understand what it's trying to say. The post contained a clip from the TEI video entitled I Haven't Been Well, H3 show number 85. The post contained no comment because the H3 Snark mods locked the post. On December 6, 2024, i.e. 10 days later, Reddit informed TEI that it honored this DMCA takedown. The second takedown. The second DMCA takedown for the H3 Snark post, Lena asks Lonerbox about civilians and doesn't get a direct answer. It's always civilians are dying, but, and then there's a reason for justifying it. Original ellipses and spelling. The second 1126 takedown, the post contained a clip from the TEI video entitled I Haven't Been Well, H3 show number 85. The post contained no comments because the H3 Snark mods locked the post. On December 6, 2024, i.e. 10 days later, Reddit informed TEI that it honored this DMCA takedown. Okay. See, you were the smoking gun. You were the one who found Sarah Horn Jewitz. Without you, this lawsuit would be nothing. That does seem to be the one that they have like the most information on. Doe number 3 or whatever. But like Ethan was saying, now that they're making an official lawsuit, they'll be able to subpoena it or whatever and get the actual, as much information as they can. Still, very, very odd. Okay. Sorry. The H3 Snark mods efforts to issue fraudulent counter notifications. I guess this makes sense why this one is 60 pages, because I was wondering how much could Caseyron have done to make an actual 60 pages, but this has a lot to do with H3 Snark too. I was like, all she was doing was farting and, ripping bong, huge bong rips. Huge volcano rips. So, how much could she have really done? But I guess it makes sense to use, because I don't know why they would, oh my god. I don't know why they would, align themselves so heavily with an online community. It's just such a weird, build your own community, yes, and maybe you can point to things at times, but it does often feel like they are getting too much gratification out of a random hate community. But the H3 Snark mods made a concerted effort to issue fraudulent counter notifications to TEI's DMCA takedowns, as detailed below. On January 15th, 2025, Reddit informed TEI that a so-called counter notification was issued against both the 8/30/24 takedown and the 9/18/24 takedown, the first fraudulent counter notification. The first fraudulent counter notification was issued on October 18th, 2024, i.e., Reddit informed TEI nearly 3 months later. On its face, the first fraudulent counter notification failed to satisfy the requirements of 17 USC section 5112 G3 because it failed to include the issuer's address and telephone number, consent to jurisdiction and service of process, and a statement made under penalty of perjury. Further, the first fraudulent counter notification contained numerous indicia of being fraudulent because, one, it was a single counter notification for posts made by two different users, i.e. user Sarah Ornajewicz and user O'Brien Potatoes. And two, it misrepresented that the 8/30/24 takedown was for the post and not the comment with the YouTube link. It was also evident that the first fraudulent counter notification was issued by the H3 snark mods because it stated, 1, we are writing to contest the removal of 2 posts from our subreddit under alleged copyright claims. Emphasis added. 2. We believe these reports may have been filed by fans rather than the legitimate copyright holder. A true and correct copy of the first fraudulent counter notification is attached hereto as Exhibit B. Emphasis added. Despite the fact that TEI's counsel's contact information was provided in both the 8/30/24 takedown and 9/18/24 takedown, and 3, the name of the issuer was Michael Anderson, a generic name that would make it impossible to identify the user of the first fraudulent counter notification, on January 16th, I skipped ahead too far. I read that too fast. So that's how they know it was fraudulent, though, because it was made by a user was Michael Anderson, a generic name that would make it impossible to identify the user of the first fraudulent counter notification. But on January 16th, 17th, 2025, i.e. 2 days after receiving the first fraudulent counter notification, TEI explained that TEI explained in exacting detail the facts and law demonstrating the first fraudulent counter notification was invalid. On March 18th, 2025, i.e. over 2 months later, Reddit responded that it agreed that the first fraudulent counter notification was invalid, but claimed that it would refuse to honor the 8/30/24 takedown because the post only linked to TEI's video on YouTube. The same day, TEI explained to Reddit that this was false because the 8/30/24 takedown explicitly stated it was directed at a comment by Doe number 3, i.e. user Sarah Ornajewicz, and contained a YouTube link, including providing a screenshot for the comment. To date, Reddit has not responded. Damn, and that was all the way back in January. Additionally, on March 18th, 2025, the same day Reddit informed TEI, so that was back in March, sorry, off a little bit. March, so they haven't responded since March. But on the same day that they responded about the first fraudulent counter notification being invalid, Reddit notified TEI that another counter notification was issued regarding the 9/18/24 takedown, the second fraudulent counter notification. The second fraudulent counter notification was issued on December 5th, 2024, i.e. Reddit notified TEI 3.5 months later. It sounds like they might be coming after Reddit too for just like poor practices or whatever. Because yeah, the fact that they're pointing out that they're not even being notified 3.5 months later, it's like, is this collusion or just extreme negligence? But the second fraudulent counter notification contained no indicia that the issuer considered the 4 fair use factors prior to issuing the second fraudulent counter notification, which is unlawful. See, and they quoted themselves. They quoted oh no, wait, never mind. This is something else. Or is it? Or no, this one is. Yeah, this one is Sada versus Klein. Then the other ones are just other cases. Being able to quote your own legal case is kind of fire. Talk about a pissing contest. Further, the language of the second fraudulent counter notification demonstrated the issuer, user O'Brien Potatoes, did not understand fair use in general by stating this was an abuse of the fair use system, which is bizarre because the user O'Brien Potatoes was claiming fair use, not TEI. And two, the conclusory assertion, even so, it would still be allowed under fair use, without any analysis. This is further emphasized by an April 11th, 2025 post on X by O'Brien Potatoes 1. In the post, O'Brien Potatoes posted the cease and desist letters sent by TEI's counsel and defended the Reddit post by claiming it was only a 1.5 minute long clip, i.e., only focusing on the amount used and not the other fair use factors. The second fraudulent counter notification also echoed language similar to the first fraudulent counter notification, indicating the H3 Snark mods worked with user O'Brien Potatoes to issue the second fraudulent counter notification. Namely, this subreddit has only been mercy to many bad faith brigades recently, so I do not believe this appeal was filed by the actual copyright owner. Emphasis added. Despite the 9/18/24 takedown containing TEI's counsel's contact information. Additionally, after the second 11/26/24 takedown was issued, one of the H3 Snark mods, who later deleted their account, left a comment on the post stating, "I reached out via DM to discuss how to appeal these, if you're willing to fill out the form." This further emphasizes the H3 Snark mods coordinating a campaign of issuing fraudulent counter notifications to enable H3 Snark's copyright infringement of TEI's work. The H3 Snark mods went on a public relations campaign to paint TEI's DMCA takedowns as fraudulent to cover up their copyright infringement to achieve this objective. The H3 Snark mods authored several posts misrepresenting the facts. After Ethan became vocal about pursuing claims against H3 Snark, the H3 Snark mods began deleting their posts, comments, and accounts in mass to perpetuate their false narrative and conceal their copyright infringement, along with other illegal activities such as on organized harassment and defamation. On March 5th, 2025, a YouTuber by the name of The Law had posted a video on YouTube entitled "Dear H3 Snark, I see you." In the video, The Law admits he was a former H3 Snark user who became a who came to reject the obsessive and destructive behavior he saw taking over the subreddit. He documented the acts of copyright infringement by H3 Snark users and H3 Snark mods and other unlawful conduct, including their attempts to conceal their unlawful conduct. The video documents 1. The H3 Snark mods deleted posts after Ethan announced plans to pursue legal action against H3 Snark for harassment. How the H3 Snark mods abused the live chat feature on Reddit to promote harassment and defamatory statements, including promoting some of the egregious offenders into the H3 Snark, some of the egregious offenders into H3 Snark mods. And 3. How the H3 Snark mods use sock puppet accounts, i.e., using a false online identity for deceptive purposes to conceal their identities while engaging in harassment, which were deleted after Ethan announced he would pursue legal action against H3 Snark. And 4. How the H3 Snark mods purposefully lied about TEI's DMCA takedown to conceal their copyright infringement and obfuscate their intent to siphon views and ad revenue away from TEI. TEI creates and registers the Nuke. By the fall of 2024, Ethan and Ela Klein let me take a drink real quick. It's all going through my brain too fast. No, I swear, the 42 bong loads are getting to me. Okay, let's continue. Sorry. By the fall of 2024, Ethan and Ela Klein's concern reached a fever pitch over Hassan radicalizing his audience with propaganda from Ansarullah, aka the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Sorry, I need to turn this banger down just a little bit. The Kleins were equally concerned with Twitch's refusal to enforce its community guidelines against Hassan and his so-called waiting room, i.e. other Twitch streamers. Damn, this one's really loud. The Kleins were, like Caseyron, who parrot Hassan and parasitically leech off his audience by broadcasting immediately before or after his streams. Hassan and his waiting room hijacked the necessary and important discussion of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Gaza war. They employed genocidal rhetoric that painted all Israelis as subhuman, warranting annihilation. The term Zionist lost all meaning and quickly mutated into a thinly veiled dog whistle for Jews to combat the tsunami of hateful rhetoric. Ethan and Ela Klein, through TEI, created Content Nuke Hassan Pike. The nuke was created, shot, and edited from December 2024 through January 2025. On December 27, 2025, i.e., 4 days before the nuke was publicly released on TEI's H3H3 Productions YouTube channel, TEI submitted its application to register the nuke with the United States Copyright Office, the USCO. On January 28, 2025, the USCO received the deposit copy of the nuke. The deposit copy, I guess they're just adding that it is. They're going to keep calling it the deposit copy. The registration number for the nuke is PAU 4256429. The deposit copy varied slightly from the broadcast version of the nuke. The broadcast version. First, the deposit copy did not contain the conclusion and sponsor segment that was contained in the broadcast version. Second, to prevent the nuke from being age restricted by YouTube, which would limit its reach, TEI was required to fully blur out the footage of the Houthis entering the bridge of the Galaxy Leader and black out the footage of Hamas releasing hostages from November 2023. Third, minor visual edits were made. Ultimately, all of the deposit copy was incorporated into the broadcast version. The Nuke. The Nuke is a tragicomic documentary critiquing Hassan and Twitch. It consists of original footage, highly edited montages, parodic skits, and archival materials, a great deal of which is owned by TEI. The Nuke can be divided into 7 sections: the Prologue, the Twitch parody section, the Twitch parody sketch, the Houthi section, the Hezbollah section, the Hamas section, the Twitch section, and the conclusion.
Hey bro, you ever heard of this Ryan Kavanaugh dude? Ryan Kavanaugh.
Sorry.
CEO of Triller.
So, the prologue. The prologue walks the audience through Ethan's thesis of the nuke, that Hassan radicalizes his audience with genocidal and anti-Semitic terrorist propaganda. While admitting both himself and Hassan are polarizing figures with controversial takes, Ethan explains he grew concerned with Hassan's rhetoric after hearing him excuse Russian and Chinese genocide and imperialism, namely Hassan's positions on Crimea, Tibet, Taiwan, and the Uyghurs. Once October 7th occurred, Ethan's concerns were exacerbated. He received a torrent of anti-Semitic comments from Hassan's audience and saw Hassan downplay the sexual violence perpetuated by Hamas on October 7th. Ethan explains that the primary difference of opinion between him and Hassan and his audience While both are aligned on supporting the Palestinian cause, including condemning Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli settlements and Israeli settlers, they differ on one key aspect regarding how to solve the conflict. Ethan believes in a two-state solution, while Hassan and his audience believe in a one-state solution. Ethan articulates the concerns Israelis have with the one-state solution. Israel has been at a war with its Arab neighbors since the country's inception. As a nation of refugees, the idea of suddenly becoming a minority raises legitimate concerns, particularly for the Mizrahi Jews, i.e. Jews from Arab countries, who were expelled from Arab countries. Ethan then shows archival footage of Hassan, supporting terrorism and glorifying terrorists, admitting to hiding his power level, i.e. extremism, because it is a more palatable way to introduce young people into the radicalization funnel, conceding to being a propagandist and expressing vitriolic hatred of liberals. Ethan further points out that Twitch takes no action to moderate Hassan. Ethan ends the prologue by expressing his underlying fear that he played a role in mainstreaming Hassan and that he radicalized Ethan's audience. The Twitch parody sketch. The next section involves Ethan's parodying a Twitch advertising executive. In the scene, Ethan mocks how Twitch has embraced Hassan's extremist rhetoric and rebrands terrorism as socially acceptable. After the sketch ends, Ethan shows a media bias report that ranked Hassan as one of the most extreme and unreliable news sources. The Houthi section focuses on Hassan radicalizing his audience by glorifying and disseminating Houthi propaganda. Ethan begins with an overview of various Houthi atrocities and how they contradict leftist values. Examples include recruiting child soldiers, shelling and blocking aid to civilians, ruining agricultural lands with mines, oppressing women and members of the LGBTQ community, torturing and killing women, and slavery. Ethan, there should be an Oxford comma here. But Ethan also highlights the Houthis' anti-Semitism, such as performing Nazi salutes and the slogan on their flag calling for death to Israel and a curse upon the Jews. Ethan critiques Hassan's coverage of the Houthis by using his stream with Nick Polam, PKA NMPLLL, Nick, as a study case. Hassan exploits Nick's political naivete by putting on the Houthi propaganda music video and leaving Nick alone, who watches in abject horror. Ethan cites Twitch's community guidelines, which explicitly prohibit showing terrorist propaganda for any purpose. Despite this, Twitch refuses to enforce its community guidelines against Hassan. Hassan downplays the fact that the Houthi propaganda video is terrorist propaganda to Nick by describing the video as merely a musical, and the Houthis as musical people. When Hassan mischaracterizes the hijacking of the ship, the Galaxy Leader, as an effective deterrent against Israel, Ethan debunks Hassan's assertion that the ship was in Houthi waters, destined to Israel, or an Israeli ship. Ethan also excoriates Hassan for minimizing the Houthis taking the crew of the Galaxy Leader hostage. Ethan also critiques Hassan's misguided belief that if Israeli commerce is disrupted, Israelis will leave Israel. Ethan demonstrates 80% of Israelis were born in the country and have nowhere else to go. This is exacerbated by the fact that the majority of Jewish Israelis fled or are descendants of those who fled Arab countries. The argument that Jews will return where they came from is ahistorical and denies their connection of Jews to the Middle East. Rather, it furthers an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that questions the origins of the Jews in an attempt to brand Jewish Israelis as outsiders and colonizers. Ethan shows another example of Hassan watching and praising a different Houthi propaganda music video. To mock Hassan's laudatory coverage of the video, Ethan juxtaposes the Houthi music video with a highly edited version of the Miami Boys Jewish choir singing Yerushalayim. Ethan lambasts Hassan's interview of the Houthi terrorist Rashid al-Haddad, aka Tim Houthi Chalamet. Al-Haddad became a viral sensation on TikTok when he shot footage of himself boarding the Galaxy Leader. Ethan mocks Hassan's self-described journalism through a montage of Hassan, I almost called him John, Hassan acting like a fangirl, asking frivolous questions and blindly accepting al-Haddad's answers, particularly his absurd claim that he danced with the crew taken hostage and that he successfully convinced the crew to hate Israel. Ethan exposes Hassan subsequently Ethan exposes Hassan's subsequent attempts to downplay al-Haddad's Houthi connections as disingenuous and a form of bigotry. Not only did Hassan believe he was speaking with a Houthi and promoted the interview as being with a Houthi, al-Haddad's social media posts admitted and reinforced this fact. When confronted with al-Haddad's social media posts that failed to distinguish between Jews and Zionists, Hassan engages in all forms of apologia to excuse al-Haddad's genocidal and anti-Semitic rhetoric. Hassan even grotesquely compares al-Haddad to Anne Frank, which Ethan mocks as a Twitch advertising executive. The Houthi section ends with Ethan excoriating Hassan with a montage of him cynically deflecting and evading criticism by exploiting the term genocide. This hypocrisy is highlighted by footage of Hassan from a few years ago where he was unable to locate Yemen on a map. But we gotta remember, Hassan was just trolling. And he even confused it with Israel, but that's because he was just trolling. Did he also confuse it with Turkey? Which wouldn't say that he's bad at geography, that would just mean he's low-key a little dumb. But now we move on to the Hezbollah section. The Hezbollah section focuses on Hassan's radicalizing his audience by disseminating the glorifying Hezbollah propaganda. Ethan begins by highlighting some of Hezbollah's atrocities and how they contradict leftist values. Examples include engaging in terrorism, resulting in the death of thousands of civilians, the assassination of Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri, hijacking airplanes, firing 15,000 rockets in civilian areas, being a designated terrorist group, and its participation in the Syrian genocide to prop up the dictator Bashar al-Assad. Next, Ethan critiques, you prefer chicken over turkey? Hey, to each their own. What am I supposed to eat on Thanksgiving? I can eat chicken any day of the week. I'm going to eat chicken tonight. But next, Ethan critiques Hassan by juxtaposing scenes of him downplaying and excusing Hezbollah's genocidal terrorism and praising Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's former leader, with Nasrallah's numerous anti-Semitic and genocidal statements against Jews. Ethan goes on to critique Hassan's lazy and ignorant apologia for Hezbollah and analysis of the conflict, such as branding any criticism of Hezbollah as Islamophobic, and Hassan telling Nick that Israel attacked Lebanon because they were just there. See, and I don't get why Ethan is somehow hallucinating anti-Semitism, but anytime anyone criticizes any, honestly, just terroristic values, it's somehow Islamophobic. It's I would hope that Islam does not glorify terrorism. I don't think that it does, but if you're going to say that they go hand in hand, that's kind of crazy on your part. Ethan refutes these assertions by demonstrating Hezbollah's began firing rockets at Israel the day after October 7th killed over 100 Israelis and displaced over 200,000. Ethan questions how Hassan's falsehoods help his position when, in reality, Hassan's misrepresentations only exacerbate the conflict. The Hamas section. The Hamas section focuses on Hassan radicalizing his audience by disseminating and glorifying Hamas propaganda, coupled with denying the atrocities of October 7th. Ethan begins by highlighting some of Hamas's atrocities and how they contradict leftist values. Examples include recruiting children, committing hundreds of suicide bombings that target civilians, firing 50K rockets into civilian areas, oppression of women, punishing homosexuality by death, stealing aid intended for Gazans for its own military use, or exploiting Gazans by selling the aid back to them. Oops, sorry. Sorry, I almost died coughing, but we're back. They almost got me. But Ethan, read that. Next, Ethan critiques Hassan's reaction to a Hamas propaganda video from November 2023 involving the release of hostages. Hassan gushes effusively over Hamas's treatment of the hostages. He even makes the absurd claim that hostages released in the future will choose to stay in Gaza rather than return to Israel. When a member of Hassan's audience points out the hostages are traumatized, Hassan claims the hostages are just chilling. Ethan correctly points out that these scenes are staged by Hamas, that the hostages are still being held at gunpoint and provided instructions on how to behave, such as keep waving. Ethan goes on to lambast Hassan's reaction to a Hamas propaganda video depicting Hamas creating homemade sniper rifles. Hassan plays the entire clip without any commentary or criticism. Once complete, Hassan's explanation for showing the video is a nonsensical word salad of buzzwords that have nothing to do with the content of the video. Ethan goes on to address Hassan's grotesque denial of sexual violence perpetuated by Hamas on October 7th. He shows a montage of numerous clips of Hassan explicitly denying the sexual violence of October 7th and scoffing at President Biden and Vice President Harris discussing said violence. Ethan refutes Hassan's denial by showing clips of victim testimony from Sheryl Sandberg's documentary Screams Before Silence, and displayed the conclusion of the United Nations report that stated, overall, based on the totality of information gathered from multiple and independent sources at the different locations, there are reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred at several locations across the Gaza periphery, including in the form of rape and gang rape, during the 7th October 2023 attacks. Credible circumstantial information which may be indicative of some forms of sexual violence, including genital mutilation, sexualized torture, or cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, was also gathered. Ethan concludes the section by addressing the heart of the matter. Hassan exacerbates the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by denying the suffering of Israeli victims to hold up Hamas as unimpeachable. As Ethan poignantly states, the conflict will never end until people realize that Palestinian liberation and Israeli security are not mutually exclusive. You need both, and it can be done, but not while people like Hassan lie, propagandize, and incite hate. It's people like him, ironically, that prolong the conflict indefinitely. There's no space for conversation. There is no space for rational thought. There is no space for nuance. My position on Palestine is like 5 degrees off from where Hassan is, and to him and his community, I'm the devil, I'm a Nazi. It's delusional thinking, and it's destructive to their own cause. The Twitch section. The Twitch section explores the role Twitch plays in enabling Hassan and his waiting room to violate Twitch's community guidelines. Ethan begins by critiquing Twitch's chief executive officer, Dan Clancy. We'll just call him Clancy from here on out. He points to Clancy's ineffectiveness as a CEO, namely rolling back his initiatives to change revenue splits and the seize of sponsor logos and streams.
But it is what it is. We broke up, and here I am.
Sorry, I needed to turn this banger up.
Question. Is there anybody out there single?
Sorry. While we're talking about Dan Clancy, this song's perfect.
That broke up with a man.
He points to Clancy's ineffectiveness as a CEO, namely rolling back his initiative to change revenue splits and the size of sponsor logos on stream, along with laying off significant portions of Twitch staff. Clancy explicitly states he is a fan of Hassan and is aware of his rhetoric. Clancy even sang Hassan happy birthday and forced Twitch employees to sing along while being filmed. Ethan also discusses the creepiness of Clancy's penchant for e-girls, i.e. young female Twitch streamers whose streams are about highlighting their physical assets. By pointing to two examples of Clancy's story feature on the Twitch app being completely populated by e-girls. Next, Ethan discusses another Twitch streamer who is a member of Hassan's waiting room, Morgan, aka Frogan, by showcasing numerous instances of her moral bankruptcy. Despite Frogan claiming to support the Palestinian cause, she condemned the larger streamer, Ludwig Ogren, by telling him to keep his $10,000 donation to Palestine. By telling him to keep his $10,000 donation to Palestine because Ludwig decided not to organize a charity drive for Palestinians, even though he encouraged his viewers to donate. Ethan also highlights numerous instances of Frogan's cruelty. In one clip, Frogan wishes soldiers to get PTSD. A few days later, after the clip caused tremendous controversy, Frogan watched the clip while giggling and justifying her take, despite veterans receiving... Oh, now that's really loud. Sorry, too much Rob. Too much Rob for you. Frogan watched the clip while giggling and justifying her take. Despite veterans receiving protected status under Twitch's community guidelines, Twitch did nothing to sanction Frogan from these statements. In another clip, Frogan conducts a subathon where she promises to make a cake recreating September 11th if she reaches a certain goal. Once again, Twitch did nothing. Ethan highlights a tweet from Frogan that was made on the morning of October 7th, while the massacre was still going on. Frogan's tweet stated, Leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, they're like, oh my god, let me just restart and read that whole thing over again. It's because I had to skip down. Leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. Original spelling. Ethan juxtaposes this tweet with audio and cell phone conversations of victims of October 7th, speaking to their parents during their final moments. Ethan critiques how Twitch props up Frogan by refusing to sanction her.
Beautiful people, put your hands in the air with me right now.
Giving her awards and featuring her on Twitch's homepage. He also mocks Frogan being nominated for a Rising Star Award by her friends twice. Most notably, Ethan lambasts Twitch for allowing Frogan to host a panel at TwitchCon 2024. The panel involved a racial tier list with Arab at the top and Love Sabra at the bottom. While the premise of the tier list is who can say the word Habibi, an Arabic term of affection, the term Love Sabra was a dog whistle for Jews and Israelis for several reasons. First, Sabra is a well-known Israeli commercial hummus brand that is on the boycott, divestment, and sanction lists. Second, the term Sabra means a Jew born in Israel. Third, it falsely asserts Israelis misappropriated Arab culture and identity. As evidenced by a clip from Frogan's podcast, the purpose of disseminating this disinformation is to deny the long historical ties of Jews to the Middle East and the Levant. Ethan further highlights the hypocrisy and bigotry of these false claims by noting Arab culture and cuisine is Israeli culture and cuisine because a majority of Israeli Jews are from Arab countries or direct descendants of Jews from Arab countries. Fourth, Ethan was put in the Love Sabra category with Denims, another member of the Hassan waiting room, joking that there should be a lower category for Zionist. Fifth, Ethan notes that Ben Shapiro is put in the thumbnail for the video with Ethan, despite Shapiro not being put on the list whatsoever. Rather, the only explanation is that both Ethan and Shapiro are Jewish and married to women born in Israel. Sixth, Ethan notes that the title of the video is How Arab Are These Twitch Streamers?, which belies the assertion that the ranking was merely about hummus. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, for them to argue that it was ever just purely about hummus is kind of stupid because it's literally called Who Can Say Habibi. It was never just about the hummus.
Wow, Ethan, great moves.
It was saying if you eat this hummus, you're a white boy. You eating that white boy hummus is what they're saying. You can't say Habibi. Ethan concludes this segment by pointing out the hypocrisy of the panel claiming to be concerned with minorities while refusing to acknowledge their tier list makes a Jewish man uncomfortable. Finally, Ethan marvels that Twitch approved the panel in the first place. Ethan critiques a Q&A session Clancy conducted on Twitch shortly after the controversy over the racial tier list erupted. Several chatters for the Q&A session asked Clancy to address the anti-Semitism on Twitch, all of whom were banned from the chat. Ethan addresses the year-long ban Twitch imposed to prevent Israeli users from creating new Twitch accounts. The ban was enacted on October 13th, 2023, i.e. 6 days after October 7th, which is also the global day of jihad, which is also the global day of jihad, a day of mass rage called for by Hamas leader Khalid Mashal. Despite numerous instances of Israeli Twitch streamers communicating directly with Twitch about the issue and trying to raise awareness online, Twitch either ignored or obfuscated the issue until there was a massive public outcry. Ethan goes on to excoriate Twitch by reinstating 3 well-known anti-Semites shortly after the ban was discovered: Al Haddad, Nicholas Nico Kennedy. That's Sneeko's real name? I didn't know that. It's Nico. Sneeko. Okay. Nicholas Kennedy Balantazzi, and Amor Fudel, Myron Gaines. Never forget that this is meant to be a joke about admiring Gaines, even though bro's built like a twig. And he's probably on steroids too. Isn't that crazy? Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit. Once again, Twitch reversed course after the public outcry. Ethan points out how anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli animus appears institutionalized at Twitch. Ethan cites 2 Twitch employees in leadership positions who made anti-Semitic and anti-Israel posts online. First is Fadzai Madzingira, who was investigated and suspended from her role in a British media regulatory agency, Oxcom. Madzingira was called out in the middle of the United Kingdom's Parliament for her anti-Israel and anti-Semitic posts shortly after October 7th. After she resigned, Madzingira was hired by Twitch as a senior manager in Twitch's Trust and Safety Policy Department, i.e. the department responsible for the community guidelines. Another example is Bridget Karamatany, Karamate, I'm just going to call her Bridget, who is Twitch's senior manager for exclusive marketing and has a history of making anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli posts, including shortly after October 7th. Ethan concludes the section by critiquing Twitch's biased and inconsistent enforcement of its community guidelines. He uses the ban of Stephen Bernal II, Destiny, as a case study. Destiny was permanently banned from Twitch for calling a streamer and trans activist Clara Sorrenti, PKA Keffel's, inbred. A montage is shown of Hassan repeatedly referring to Jews and Israelis as inbred, or laughing at Jews being called inbred. Hassan received no punishment from Twitch because he is Clancy's favorite streamer. Ethan recaps other examples of Hassan's flagrant violations of Twitch's community guidelines that resulted in no consequences. Not only did Hassan call Jews and Israelis inbred and platform terrorists and terrorist propaganda, Hassan threatened Senator Tom Cotton by replying to Senator Cotton's tweet with a schematic of the weapon used to assassinate Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. This is followed by a montage of numerous instances of alt-left streamers on Twitch making death threats without any or minimal consequences from Twitch. And finally, the conclusion. Ethan ends the nuke by summarizing the two reasons why he made the video. First, to stop Hassan's infiltration of mainstream media. Second, to hold Twitch accountable for enabling anti-Semitism and anti-Israel animus on its platform. H3 Snark promotes Caseyron as a substitute for watching the nuke. Interesting. So now we're getting back into Caseyron, the biggest ripper we know. Throughout January 2025, Ethan built up public interest in the nuke by frequently discussing it on the H3 show. The audience of Hassan and his waiting room, who comprised a large portion of the users on H3 Snark, anticipated the nuke with religious fervor to defend their proverbial Grand Mufti from criticism. These fanatics, however, did not want to watch the authorized version of the nuke because that's what I need to do. My bad, I had to fix the audio real quick. It sounded too epic, you know? Had to pull it back real quick. These fanatics, however, did not want to watch the authorized version of the nuke because TEI would recap the benefits from the views and resulting in advertising revenue. The H3 Snark mods knew that there was a huge demand to watch the nuke through unauthorized channels and promoted group viewing sessions. Of the nuke the music is throwing me off right now because this one has a lot of them talking in it, and I think that it's other like clips or something playing. It's like I need the music to be loud in my headphones, but I need it to not be too loud so it doesn't fuck me up. Okay, I think this will work. On January 30th, 2025, i.e. the day before the nuke was released, Doe number 3, as an H3 Snark mod and on behalf of the H3 Snark mods, created a pinned post entitled Megathread, Content Nuke, Where to Watch and Discussion, First Inducement Post. As a pinned community post, the first inducement post was featured at the very top of the H3 Snark page in the community highlights section before any other posts were visible. The H3 Snark mods did this to maximize the visibility of the first inducement post. The first inducement post featured Caseyron as a place to watch the nuke without showing support for H3, i.e. TEI, and a link was provided to her stream on Twitch. The first inducement post also stated that Caseyron supported H3 Snark by engaging directly with the H3 Snark mods directly. A true and correct PDF printout of the first inducement post is attached hereto as Exhibit F. Do I need to look at those again? I could, but I'd have to go like... There we go. Yeah, this was the post. We looked through all of these yesterday. Tomorrow morning, fuck off. Wow. It's crazy that this many people want to watch it, but are like, how do I watch it without supporting Ethan? Grr. Yada, 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 yada. On January 31st, 2025, the H3 Snark mods created and updated a pinned community post entitled Ethan Klein's Content Nuke on Hassan Piker H3 Snark Mega Thread, the second inducement post. The second inducement post was also a pinned community post that was featured at the very top of the H3 Snark page to maximize visibility. The second inducement post featured Caseyron as a place to watch reactions of this video, i.e. the nuke, and the link was provided to her stream on Twitch. A true and correct PDF printout of the inducement post is attached hereto as Exhibit G, and it is just another one of the exact same style posts. Go watch it. McCarthyism is back, baby! Seems like this is just a Red Scare video. I swear all of these people are still learning about fucking... They're still like learning world history. That's why they say shit like that. This is just like McCarthyism. Oh, fuck, sorry. At some point on January 31st, 2025, the H3 Snark mods deleted the first inducement post and second inducement post to conceal their contributory infringement of the nuke. The H3 Snark mods were well aware of Caseyron's reputation for copyright infringement and laser reaction videos. As such, the H3 Snark mods knew that it was highly likely Caseyron's reaction to the nuke would be an infringing group viewing session of the nuke and not a fair use. The H3 Snark mods coordinated with Caseyron to direct H3 Snark users to Caseyron's group viewing session of the nuke, noting she was live but not reacting yet to the nuke. Exhibit G. Original emphasis. The law of fair use and reaction videos. Fair use is codified in Section 107 of the Copyright Act. The statute sets forth 4 non-exclusive factors courts consider to evaluate fair use. The purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes. The nature of the copyrighted work. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. The first fair use factor relates to the problem of substitution, i.e., whether the New York supersedes or supplants the original Warhol. The central question is whether the secondary work adds something new with a further purpose or a different character. Id at 528. The mere fact that a secondary use has some further purpose or adds something new does not render such use fair. Rather, whether an allegedly infringing use has a further purpose or different character is a matter of degree, and the degree of difference must be weighed against other considerations, like commercialism. Very true. While a use that has a further purpose or different character is said to be transformative, transformativeness is a matter of degree. Well, yeah, I guess that's like the whole point is, with what Lemino was saying in the Nuke 1.5, how Lemino said that just adding yourself sitting in the corner and talking here and there isn't necessarily transformative. Transformation. Even if you are adding commentary, the transformation would be what type of commentary are you adding. The music agreed with me. Why do I keep getting thrown off on where I am? Indeed, an overboard concept of transformative use, one that includes any further purpose or any different character, would narrow the copyright owner's exclusive right to create derivative works. To preserve the right, the degree of transformation required to make transformative use of an original must go beyond that required to qualify as a derivative. The first factor also relates to the justification for the use, both in a broad sense and the narrow sense. A use is justified in the broad sense if it has a distinct purpose that furthers the goal of copyright, namely to promote the progress of science and the arts without diminishing the incentive to create. A use is justified in the narrower sense, when it is reasonably necessary to achieve the user's new purpose. Such justification is particularly relevant to assessing fair use, where wide dissemination of a secondary work would otherwise run the risk of substitution for the original or licensed derivatives. Again, the question of justification is one of degree. A critical book review illustrates how a secondary use must be justified both in the original and narrow sense. In the broad sense, the use of the original serves a different purpose than the book, i.e. criticism or commentary. Or criticism and commentary. I guess you could put and/or, but whatever. And/or? Star Wars? In the narrow sense, each quoted passage within the review... Sorry, my throat got... I swear every once in a while I just choke on my own spit. And I don't know how. I guess I just salivate too much. I'm drooling over these lawsuits. In the narrow sense, each quoted passage within the review likely serves a different purpose in object of criticism than it does in the book. Critically, this may not also be so, and a court must consider each use within the whole to determine whether the copying is fair. Consequently, even book reviews are not entitled to a presumption of fairness. There are several indicia of when a use for criticism or commentary is not sufficiently transformative to justify a secondary use. When the commentary has no critical bearing on the substance or style of the original composition, the claim of fairness is borrowing from another's work diminishes accordingly if it does not vanish, and other factors, while the extent of its commerciality loom largely. Indeed, a loose topical connection with the original work is equally problematic. When a defendant copies more than is necessary to facilitate comment or criticism, the law is clear that, to be considered transformative criticism, the aspect of the work that reproduces another's protected expression must be in service of commentary on that work. It is not enough for part of the work to be of a transformative purpose. When the use of the copyrighted work is not consistently transformative, Elvis Presley, for example, when clips are played without much interruption, if any, or used in excess of the benign purpose. The use of voiceovers, headlines, or captions, or wholesale copying sprinkled within written commentary fails to sufficiently transform a copyrighted work under the first fair use factor. Additionally, when a copyrighted work is used simply to illustrate that work already is used simply to illustrate what that work already depicts, the infringer adds no further purpose or different character. That's kind of interesting. So if you're making a commentary on a video, but your commentary is somewhat in line with like the topic at hand, or like the opinion of the whatever you're watching or reading, then it's not necessarily a like thorough enough commentary to classify as fair use. That's why you always got to be critical. Make sure you're critical about everything. Break everything down into its smallest components and then rebuild it back up from the surface. The music agrees with me again. I keep scrolling down like an idiot. I don't know why I keep doing that. I did already read this part. Yeah, why do I keep scrolling around? I need to like take my hands off. There it was. The first fair use factor does not favor any user who wants to reach different buyers in different markets, communing different products. As mentioned, the degree to which a secondary use has a different purpose or character must be weighted against other considerations, like commercialism. The undisputed commercial character of the defendant's use, though not dispositive, tends to weigh against the finding of fair use. Commercialism examines the degree to which the new user exploits the copyright for commercial gain, as opposed to incidentally use as part of the commercial enterprise. And I guess that's what the thing would be, is like, how much are you talking versus how much are you not? That's why in this one it's called like she smokes more than she spoke, because it's like, is smoking considered transformative enough? If that's what's happening for a majority of her commentary. Courts consider whether a defendant was motivated by profits or profited from the publication. Further, if the defendant is not advertising a scholarly critique or historical analysis, but instead seeks to profit at least in part from the inherent entertainment value of the original, the use is commercial. Finally, commercialism exists when a secondary user makes unauthorized use of copyrighted material to capture significant revenues as a direct consequence of copying original work. In Big Hoss, the court found that the first fair use factor favored fair use because the Klein video was quintessential criticism and comment of the Hoss video. Namely, consistent mockery of Matt Hoss's performance, dialogue, and plot lines. The Klein video was consistently transformed by interspersing relatively short segments of the Hoss video with long segments of the Klein's commentary. The second fair use factor, the nature of the copyrighted work, typically has not been terribly significant in the overall fair use balancing. This factor examines the extent to which the original work is creative and whether it is unpublished, even when a work documents a real event. The work can still be creative because it is the product of many technical and artistic decisions. That would probably be news reports and stuff like that. Whether a work is published as defined by whether the author exhausted the right to control the first public appearance of the work. The mere fact a work is published does not weigh in favor of fair use. Matter of law. It is a matter of law. And we can never forget that. In Hoss vs. Klein, The court found that the second fair use factor weighed against the finding of fair use because the Haas video was a creative work despite the work being published. I'm confused. I am a little confused by what that. Is it saying that you can do unpublished? You can have an unpublished copyrighted work? Because I guess that makes sense, but I don't see why that's necessarily relevant in any of this, but maybe I'm just reading that wrong. The third fair use factor examines the quantitative amount and qualitative value of the original work used in relation to the justification for that use. Consequently, the third fair use factor circles back to the first fair use, or the first factor, because the extent of permissible copying varies with the purpose of and character of the use. When the amount used is substantial with respect to the infringed work or the infringing work, it is evidence that the value it is evidence of the value of the copyrighted work. Copying an entire work militates against the finding of fair use. If, however, the new user only copies as much as necessary for his or her intended use, this factor will not weigh against the new user. In Haas v. Klein, the court found that the third fair use factor was neutral because while the Klein video copied a great deal of the Haas video, the extent and quality and importance of the video clips used by the Kleins were plainly necessary to the commentary and critique. The fourth fair use factor is the undoubtedly and single most important element of fair use. Harper and Row, Publishers Inc. versus Nation Enterprise. This one's sorry. While the first fair use factor considers whether and to what extent an original work and secondary use have substitutable purposes, the fourth factor focuses on actual and potential market substitution. The fourth fair use factor encompasses both 1, the extent of market harm caused by a particular action of the alleged infringer, and 2, whether unrestricted and widespread conduct of the sort engaged in by the defendant would result in a substantially adverse impact on the potential market for the original and the market for derivative works. I never thought about this. If I pirate stuff and were to sell it in countries where like they don't have access to it, is that not technically breaking copyright laws because I'm not competing with their market? I'm not competing in the same markets. Like, obviously the piracy in itself is illegal, but interesting. The fourth fair use factor also must take into account the public benefits the copying would likely produce. Google LLC versus... In other words, does the use serve copyright's goal of enriching public knowledge? When the original work is associated with dangerous misinformation, it does not serve the public benefit and results in actual and reputational harm to the market for the original work. Even when the primary markets do not meaningfully overlap, National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Incorporated, in Haas v. Klein, the court found the fourth fair use factor weighs in favor of the determination of fair use. The Klein's video did not usurp demand for the copyrighted work, thereby resulting in a loss for the infringee or unjust enrichment for the infringer. To the contrary, the Klein's video did not serve as a market substitute for the Haas video, but the Klein video transformed the Haas video into a skit into fodder for caustic, moment-by-moment commentary and mockery. Consequently, the Klein video does not offer a substitute for the original. Caseyron's group viewing session failed to make a fair use of the Nuke. It is readily apparent that the primary purpose of Caseytron's use of the nuke was to offer a group viewing session of the nuke as a substitute for the original. This is evidenced by Caseytron begins her group viewing session 13 minutes after the nuke was released to the public. Example H, at 30 seconds, the timing of Caseytron's group viewing session of the nuke demonstrates that she did not pre-screen it to formulate her opinions prior to broadcast. They want us to pre-watch everything? Lame. The law wants us to pre-watch shit. I guess that's true, that just because they're not operating in a market, it's still a potential market. I wonder how much that holds up though. Like, what are the, because I mean, clearly people do it. Go to Mexico and buy SpongeBob shirts. Like, they're breaking trademark and copyright laws and stuff when they're selling a bootlegged SpongeBob DVD. But obviously they're not going to get caught by Nickelodeon when they're just selling it in their small communities. So I guess it's a multifaceted issue. But rather, Caseytron timed her group viewing session to occur shortly after the nuke was released to capitalize on the great public interest in the nuke and siphon as many viewers as possible away from the original to herself. In other words, her priority was to personally benefit from providing a substitute for the original, and any commentary and criticism was a mere afterthought. Immediately prior to watching the nuke, Caseytron states, "I know a lot of people have been wanting to watch this without necessarily supporting Ethan Klein, so we're going to watch it." This demonstrates that Caseytron knew her audience wanted a substitute for the nuke, and she was more than happy to provide one. Caseytron's group viewing session suffers from a poverty of any commentary in general, let alone on the style or substance of the nuke itself. For example, over the course of 10 minutes, Caseytron makes 5 short comments, some completely unrelated to the nuke. I don't know anything about this stuff. Here we go, right? So now he cares about genocide? I mean, it's true America is bad. What's wrong with him saying that's true? What's wrong with him saying that? It's true. By showing the entirety of the nuke without providing extensive commentary that eclipsed the amount shown demonstrates that commentary was a mere afterthought for Caseytron. Caseytron admits that she has no idea about world politics, geopolitics, or anything like that, or capable of commenting on a vast majority of the points raised in the nuke. In other words, Caseytron admits she is not competent to provide meaningful commentary on the substance of the nuke. Relatedly, Caseytron repeatedly states she needs to watch the nuke again with Mike's analysis. The Mike Caseytron is referring to is Michael W. Beyer, Central Committee, or Mike from PA. Beyer is a failed Nepo. I'll call him PA. No, I'll call him Mike from PA. Mike from PA is a failed Nepo baby. You got to put nepotism, or you have to specify what you mean by Nepo. But Mike from PA, Mr. from PA, is a failed Nepo baby who is a prolific purveyor of misinformation to the public for over a decade. As explained below, Caseytron's reliance on Mr. from PA as a source of reliable information is misplaced and misguided. Mike is the son of former Pennsylvania State Representative Karen Beyer, who was a Republican. Losing her seat in 2010, Beyer changed his political affiliation from Republican to Democrat to run against State Representative Justin Simmons, the man who defeated his mother in the Republican primary in 2010. Beyer had the great privilege of going and completing law school at the University of Pittsburgh. Despite having the opportunity many would envy, Beyer squandered his education. After law school, he became a real estate consultant to his family, and had not relied on or applied his legal training to impart legal advice in such endeavor. He did not actively prepare for the bar examination, had not yet scheduled himself to take the bar, nor did he claim to be working with the law for a lawyer or a judge as a non-lawyer assistant. In 2014, buyer Mike from PA ran against Representative Simmons for his mother's prior seat. In his petition, Mike stated his occupation was a lawyer. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court took a drastic remedy of invalidating Mike's petition because his description of occupation was both materially defective and issued with knowledge that it could mislead electors as to his credential for the office of lawmaker. While Mike eventually ran as a write-in candidate, he lost the election by 22.2%. Afterwards, Mike blamed his local Democratic Party for the misrepresentation in his petition, claiming he was responsible for completing it. Mike's alibi raises more questions than answers, particularly given that he was a law school graduate, such as, did Mike sign the petition without reviewing it first? Did Mike sign the petition first and the Democratic Party subsequently completed it? And 3, is Mike engaging in another misrepresentation? After failing at a political career that was handed to him on a silver platter, Mike became a streamer. Over time, his politics grew more radical, and he began to traffic in baseless conspiracy theories, falsehoods, and online harassment. Indeed, Caseyron is too obliterated to comment on the nuke, and instead stares blankly at her computer screen. In the span of 2 hours and 7 minutes, Caseyron smokes marijuana, frequently in a highly concentrated form through a vaporizer, for nearly 19 minutes, which is 3 minutes more than Caseyron speaks during her group viewing session. At one point, Caseyron was so wasted that she states, "What is happening? I'm trying to follow, but I lost the plot." More notably than her dearth of commentary and copious consumption of cannabis, nice little alliteration right there, copious consumption of cannabis, is the sound of what appears to be Caseyron repeatedly emitting flatulence on stream. The nuke takes the vast majority of the screen for Caseyron's reaction. Caseyron's objective was to provide a large and unobstructed view of the nuke to her audience. In contrast, Caseyron sequesters herself to a small portion of the screen and de-emphasizes her presence, particularly relative to the nuke. Caseyron's use of the nuke was highly commercial. Throughout her group viewing session of the nuke, Caseyron solicits donations and her donation goal at the top of the screen. On her Twitch page, where Caseyron's group viewing session was located, Caseyron solicited paid subscriptions, donations, and bits, a different form of monetary compensation on Twitch. Each time Caseyron receives a donation or paid subscription, an announcement would play over the nuke. Indeed, during her group viewing session of the nuke, Caseyron received numerous paid subscriptions and donations. Further, Caseyron received advertising revenue from her group viewing session of the nuke. As to the second fair use factor, the fact that the second nuke was released 13 minutes prior to Caseyron's group viewing session does not weigh in her favor. Further, the continuing numerous documentary and factual elements, the nuke contains numerous creative elements which weigh against fair use. As to the third fair use factor, this factor weighs heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent that Caseyron's use was excessive for any potential criticism of the nuke, particularly in light of the minimal level of commentary and highly commercial nature of Caseyron's group viewing session. This is particularly true when Caseyron repeatedly provides brief statements, many of which have little to no critical bearing on the nuke, after showing long unadulterated segments of the nuke. The fourth and most important fair use factor weighs the most heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent that Caseyron's intended and succeeded to provide a market substitute for the nuke for the reasons set forth below. Caseyron attempts before her group viewing session that, or states Caseyron's statement before her group viewing session that I know a lot of people have been wanting to watch this without necessarily supporting Ethan Klein, so we're going to watch it. Showing the nuke in its entirety with minimal commentary, starting her group viewing session 13 minutes after the nuke was released to the public with the interest of in the nuke, or when the interest in the nuke was at its apex. The first inducement post and the second inducement post by the H3 Snark mods, due to Caseyron siphoning the audience for the nuke to her group viewing session, TEI lost views and advertising revenue it would ordinarily receive from the individuals who watched Caseyron's group viewing session instead of the nuke. Caseyron's conduct did become widespread. Several other members of Hassan's waiting room conducted a group viewing session of the nuke immediately after its release, which resulted in further lost views and lost advertising revenue to TEI. First claim of relief for direct copyright infringement against Caseyron. TEI incorporates, by reference of allegation contained in the preceding paragraphs of this complaint, TEI is the sole owner of the copyright in the nuke and registers it with the USCO. Caseyron accessed the nuke from TEI's YouTube channel H3H3 Productions. TEI did not grant any license, authorization or consent to Caseyron to exploit the nuke in any manner. Rather, Caseyron's group viewing session of the nuke constitutes an unauthorized reproduction, public performance, and derivative work of the nuke in violation of TEI's right as set forth in 17 USC Section 106. Due to Caseyron's act of copyright infringement, TEI has suffered damages in an amount to be established at trial. Due to Caseyron's act of copyright infringement, Caseyron obtained profits that they would not have realized, but for her infringement of TEI's copyrights in the nuke. Caseyron's acts of copyright infringement were done with actual or constructive knowledge of TEI's rights, such that said acts of copyright infringement were willful, intentional, malicious, and or taken with reckless disregard for TEI's rights. Second claim for relief. Contributory copyright infringement against the H3 Snark mods. TEI incorporates by reference the allegations contained in the preceding paragraphs of this complaint. The H3 Snark mods, and each one of them, knew Caseyron's group viewing session would infringe TEI's copyrights in the nuke. The H3 Snark mods, and each one of them, are responsible for the first inducement post and second inducement post. The first inducement post and second inducement post induced, caused, and or materially contributed to Caseyron's infringement of the nuke. Due to the H3 Snark mods' contributory infringement, TEI has suffered damages in the amount to be established at trial. The H3 Snark mods' act of contributory infringement were made with the actual and constructive knowledge of TEI's rights, such that said acts of contributory infringement were willful, intentional, malicious, and or taken with reckless disregard for TEI's rights. Prayer for relief. Wherever TEI prays for judgment against Caseyron and the H3 Snark mods, collectively defendants, as follows: that TEI be rewarded defendants and each of their profits plus TEI's losses attributable to defendants' infringement of the nuke, the exact sum to be proven at the time of trial, or if elected, statutory damages in the amount of $150,000 as available under 17 USC Section 504. TEI be awarded its reasonable attorney's fees and costs under 17 USC Section 505. TEI be awarded prejudgment interest as allowed by law, and TEI be awarded such further relief as the court deems proper. Jury trial demanded. TEI demands a jury trial on all issues so triable pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 38 and the 7th Amendment of the United States Constitution. And that's that. 52. That was that one. 52 pages of that. It's time to hop over to Denims or Frogan. Gotta decide. I definitely don't think I'm gonna be able to read all of these because how long is this one? This one is 80. How long is Frogan's? Here, I guess I'm gonna read Frogan's first, and then I guess I might have to save Denims for oh yeah, this is what I use for demon mode. I might need to save Denims for Monday when I come back and stream again, because that took a little bit. I mean, it didn't take too long. It took a little over an hour and a half. But if this one will probably take longer than that. But there might be some spots I can skip now that I know about the H3 snark and stuff. So we'll see how it looks. I imagine a lot of it's going to be the same, other than the exhibits and stuff. But yeah, so we'll go with Frogan then for now. Frogan, reacting by exiting. Time to watch the new Nuke ethically. Hell yeah. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate everyone's support, and thank you for watching it with me, Frogan, prior to reacting to Content Nuke Hassan Piker. I came from the H3 Snark Reddit. I found my way from Reddit. Frogan reading comments in chat prior to reacting to Content Nuke Hassan Piker. Can I use the bathroom, please? I'll leave it playing. Frogan reacting to Content Nuke Hassan Piker. Wow. Okay. I guess I'll just read it from the beginning. It's fine. This lawsuit is about ending the practice of lazy reaction videos that copy entire copyrighted works that purposefully siphon views and revenue away from the original. Over 7 years ago, the owners of Plaintiff Ted Entertainment Inc., TEI, Ethan and Ela Klein, established the legal standard for fair use reaction videos in Haas vs. Klein. As a genre, reaction videos vary widely in terms of purpose, structure, and the extent to which they rely on potentially copyrighted material. Reaction videos, like the Klein video, that intersperse short segments of others' works in criticism and commentary, can constitute fair use. In contrast, reaction videos that are more akin to a group viewing session do not. This case involves a group viewing session hosted by defendant Frogan. Frogan specifically intended her group viewing session to siphon the maximum number of views and revenue away from TEI's copyrighted work, Content Nuke Hassan Piker, the Nuke, to herself. Frogan successfully achieved her objective by releasing her group viewing session of the Nuke immediately after its official release and showing it in its entirety. Frogan greatly profited from her group viewing session of the Nuke through advertising revenue, donations, and paid subscriptions. The moderators of the H3 Snark subreddit, the H3 Snark mods, knew that Frogan's group viewing session would serve as a substitute for watching the Nuke on TEI's YouTube channel. As such, the H3 Snark mod successfully promoted Frogan's group viewing session on the H3 Snark subreddit as a substitute for watching the Nuke on TEI's YouTube channel. Like most lazy reaction videos, Frogan's group viewing session of the Nuke suffers from the poverty of critical commentary. Most frequently, Frogan plays long, unadulterated portions of the Nuke to her followers. In a majority of instances, she does not even pay attention to the Nuke and instead is on her phone. Frogan even performs an anti-chair reaction where she goes off camera for several minutes while the Nuke keeps playing to her audience entertained. On a few occasions, Frogan does speak during her group viewing session of the Nuke. It is to provide repetitive statements on her favorite subject, not the plight of Palestinians, but herself. Other times, Frogan provides short, surface-level observations that provide little to no new information, new aesthetic, new insights, or understandings on the Nuke. The vast majority of these observations have little to no critical bearing on the style of or substance of the Nuke. Rather, Frogan's commentary primarily consists of repetitive ad hominem attacks on Ethan without any reference to the Nuke itself. Frogan's unauthorized, highly commercial exploitation of the nuke is a quintessential example of copyright infringement, i.e., using copyrighted content to get attention and avoid the drudgery in working up something fresh. This lawsuit is to hold Frogan accountable for her infringement of the nuke and the H3 Snark mods, accountable for their contributory infringement. Jurisdiction and venue. This action arises under the Copyright Act 17 U.S.C. 101. The court has federal question jurisdiction under 28 U.S.C. 1331, 1338. Venue in this jurisdiction, yeah, we've already read this. TEI is a California corporation with its principal place of business located in Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles County, California. TEI is a product company that produces content for social media, namely YouTube. Frogan is an online streamer who releases content on social media platforms, namely Twitch, and resides in Los Angeles, California. The H3 Snark mods are comprised of DOE's numbers 1 through 10. The true names and exact location of DOE's numbers 1 through 10 are presently unknown to TEI, which therefore sues said DOE defendants by such fictitious names, and will seek leave to amend this complaint to show their true names and exact locations when the same have been ascertained. Below is a summary of what is known about DOS numbers 1 through 6, and we've read this part. Factual allegations. Background of TEI. TEI was founded. So again, we've read through a lot of this, so I'm gonna kind of skip into Frogan. What is this? Apparently, this is probably a very bad translation, but it just says, "She hit me and cried, and she preceded me and complained." Frogan began streaming in June 2019 and on a more regular basis in August 2021. Frogan's career peaked in August 2022 when she averaged 738 viewers a stream. Ever since, Frogan has steadily lost popularity. In January 2025, i.e. the month Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke, Frogan averaged 160 viewers a stream. Frogan holds herself out as an expert. The area of her expertise, however, has yet to reveal itself. She claims to be a public health expert, yet Frogan admits her academic and professional career in public health was stunted by her lack of self-discipline. According to Frogan, her academic advisory conducted an intervention to ensure she would complete her master's degree. Frogan also admitted to abandoning her brief career in public health after her boss wanted to discuss her performance with a manager of her department. Frogan frequently portrays herself as a victim, particularly to cast herself as a Muslim woman persecuted by Zionists. The inconsistencies in her evolving narratives, however, reveal that she is not a victim at the hand of others, but her own. The following examples illustrate this pattern. The professor who failed her. On August 7th, 2016, Frogan posted on X that her professor made her write about the Arab-Israeli conflict and gave her a D on the paper. When she was the only hijabi in the class. Nearly a year later, the story changed to make the professor seem worse. On June 10th, 2017, Frogan posted on X that her professor gave her an F because what she said about Israel was wrong. Several years later, the story mutated further and made the professor seem divorced from reality. On May 8th, 2021, Frogan posted on X that her professor assigned her, the only Arab in class, to do a project about the Arab-Israeli conflict and failed her when she talked about how Palestine is occupied by Israel. In this instance, Frogan provided a screenshot summarizing 2 slides of this paper or project, one of which contains a glaring inaccuracy that Frogan admits was wrong. In the slide, Frogan claimed that there were over 400 million Palestinians that live in refugee camps in occupied territories in other Arab states. According to the UNWRA, there are only 1.5 million Palestinians living in refugee camps. This glimpse into Frogan's paper and its obvious inaccuracies reveals why Frogan received a low grade. Her paper was wrong because it contained factual inaccuracies. Instead, Frogan painted herself the victim of a fanatical professor who discriminated against her and promulgated. I've never promulgated. I'm learning all types of words. Promulgate, to promote or make widely known. Seems like an unnecessary word, but okay. Where is it? Promulgated, a counterfactual narrative that Israel is not occupying the West Bank and Gaza. I do want to see this.
But once I had to start writing my thesis, I just stopped streaming because I was so distracted. And my advisor told me that if I don't make any progress, I'm not going to graduate on time. I just quit streaming. I wasn't really like having any momentum then. It was like 10 viewers. In the summer of 2021, that's when
You mean you dedicated yourself to what you should have been at the time? Good job. So these are the X posts. This is like when my professor made me write about the Arab-Israeli conflict and gave me a D on the paper. Me, the only hijabi in the class. This shit got no likes and she's the only one that commented. I wonder what I guess the post is unavailable. Huh. I wonder how they got that post. Based? I'll never forget when I had to write about the Arab-Israeli conflict and my professor gave me an F because what I said about Israel was wrong. Crazy. Thinking about that time, okay, so these are the comments. The information from the slides read the project, excuse the error made in the population. This is from 2015. Great stuff, Frogan. Is it the one I just clicked? Yeah, it was. What did someone say? Don't be shy. Drop their name in university email. Yo, I had the same thing happen to me in speech class and he quickly changed it to debate class. Lost, then tried kicking me from the course. I love that anybody who's like, my professor fucking hated it that when I was beating their ass in the marketplace of ideas. They fucking wanted to come at me and be like, bro, you said 400 million when it was really only 1.5. And I was like, fucking Zionist. And then he tried to kick me out. Sorry, we're moving on. Back to what we were talking about. The Zionist therapist. On October 24th, 2019, Frogan posted on X that she went to therapy for the first time, and after talking about her dad fleeing the Israel-Lebanon war, she was taken aback when her therapist responded, "I'm Israeli. Do you have any issues with me being your therapist?" I want to see this because low-key, honestly, why did she take this offensively? If this is something that's like a deep issue for you, like dealing with, having grown up with a father who was basically like a, fuck, my brain is like fried right now from reading all this. But having somebody in your family who was like displaced because of the conflict between Israel and Lebanon, it would make sense for the therapist to be like, hey, if this is like if this is an issue for you where you don't feel like you can like be as open with me about things, then maybe I shouldn't be your therapist and we can get you in with someone else. As a self-described public health expert, Frogan should have realized that her therapist was adhering to the medical... Oh, yeah, here we go. The Medical Counseling Association Code of Ethics, Section 1A1, A2, A through C, and the American UNWRA Palestinian Refugees. Nice. Frogan repeatedly exhibits a fundamental lack of understanding of the Middle East and Lebanon. For example, on October 15, 2024, Frogan watched a speech by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that referenced the Druze. In response, Frogan began to say, "Who the fuck are," before being cut off by her co-host, who explained they discussed the Druze in a prior episode. Arabs podcast, what is Israel's plan with Lebanon? Great stuff. Oh, totally. I'm down. I'm down to watch a movie. I saw in your story watching The Room, right? Yeah, it depends on if I'm done in time. We'll see where I'm at. But I love The Room. Several years later, Frogan's story about her therapist mutated. On February 29th, 2024, Frogan posted on X about her bad experience with a Zionist therapist. Added emphasis. When Ethan responded that Frogan was using Zionists as a dog whistle for Jews, which was clearly the case, Frogan made another post that painted the therapist as absurdly rabid and unethical. Below is a true and correct screenshot of the post. When I say my therapist was a Zionist, when I went to her back in 2019, I meant she literally brought up that I was Lebanese unprompted and confronted me on it, saying she was Israeli. She asked if I had a problem with that, if I felt like Israelis had the right to exist, started asking more and more if I was frustrated with Islam and have considered taking off my hijab. I asked her if she was all right with me being Lebanese, and she got really aggressive, accusing me of flipping it on her and refused to answer. So when I say Zionist, I don't mean she was Jewish. I mean she was a racist Israeli. You don't even know if she was Jewish. She said she was Israeli. Who could not help herself but to confront me about my ethnicity in what was supposed to be a therapy session. So this is about ethics, okay? This is the ethics the code of ethics or whatever that they must follow. Prior to October 7th, Frogan was an effusive fan of Ethan and the podcast series he co-hosted with Hassan Piker, Hassan, entitled Leftovers. Once October 7th occurred, Frogan's social media activity demonstrated her support for Hamas and endorsement of blood libel conspiracy theories. Below are some examples. At 2:28 a.m. on October 7th, Frogan posted on X, "Leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong." Done to the insensitivity and timing of the post, Ethan decided to quietly unfollow Frogan. Shortly thereafter, Frogan liked a post on X by Alexa Volovic, aka Boy Boy, that was posted on October 7th, which stated, "It's game over for Israel. James Bond is officially fighting for Hamas." Below is a true, correct screenshot of the post. Footage of a Hamas infiltrator using a motorized hang glider to get into Israel. On October 11th, 2023, Frogan made a public scene over Ethan unfollowing her and posted on X, "That feeling when one of your favorite content creators unfollows for being pro-Palestine, LMAO." She then went to Hassan's Discord to indulge in self-pity and pleaded with Ethan to refollow her. On November 17th, 2023, Frogan liked a tweet spreading grotesque blood libel that falsely claimed Israel admitted to harvesting skin and organs from dead Palestinians to use for skin grafts and organ transplants, and the majority of skin in Israel's skin banks was stolen from Palestinians they killed. Below is a true and correct screenshot of the post. Israel is stealing Palestinian corpses from Al-Shifa Hospital for God knows what. There's no fuel, water, electricity, internet has been cut off. There's not enough food. Remember that Israel has admitted to harvesting skin and organs from dead Palestinians to use for skin grafts and organ transplants, and the majority of skin... You can't just be like, they admitted this. Where did they admit this exactly? Well, they didn't say it directly. But like, it was like implied. You just don't get it. You had to be there. Background of H3 Snark. H3 Snark is part of a genre of message boards known as... I already read the background on H3 Snark. We just read this. Yep, we saw this. We saw how Al-Husseini low-key kind of looks like Dan. Doesn't he? Am I crazy? Just saying. Yada yada yada. The rampant copyright infringement of H3 Snark. We saw all this. H3 Snark doing their stuff. Counter notifications. TEI creates and registers the nuke. We saw that. The nuke itself. Yada yada yada. We saw that. All the sections. Yes. Yeah, see, I'll be able to read through all of these. I didn't think I was going to be able to, but I'll read through all of them since I can skip through all of these parts. Elvis Presley. Harper and Row. Okay. And here we go. Here's how Frogan's group viewing session failed to make a fair use of the nuke. It is readily apparent that the primary and overriding purpose of Frogan's use of the nuke was to commercially exploit a group viewing session of the nuke and have it serve as a substitute for the original. Oh my god, I have hiccups now. No, I'll never be able to finish. Frogan's statements demonstrated that she intended for her group viewing session to serve as a substitute for the nuke, such as, on January 30th, 2025, the day before the nuke was released, Frogan made a statement on stream demonstrating her group viewing session, along with the group viewing sessions of her friends, would serve as a substitute for the original. He, i.e. Ethan Klein, wants to maximize numbers, i.e. views. Here's the thing though, no matter what, there are going to be people, i.e. other creators, that they, i.e. the audience, would rather watch it with. No matter what time he goes live. Denims goes live at like 7 in the morning. Sean goes live early as fuck. Mike from PA also goes on early as fuck. I go live in the afternoon, but lately I've been going live a little bit earlier. See example 1. Or see exhibit I, sorry. I read that as a 1. See, most of these are videos, and that's why. This was the personal beef one. See, a lot of these are the same and aren't necessary to look at. A lot of these have to do with the counter notifications and stuff like that. And then there's videos that were added. That's that. Seen this, seen that. H and I is a video. So that was the end of those, so we won't be able to see any of those clips. I could click if there are any other links. Okay. Shortly before watching the nuke, Frogan made the following statement acknowledgement: that her group viewing session of the nuke was a substitute for watching the original, and the H3 Snark was funneling audience members to Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke, with statements such as, "We have a bingo card, the H3 Snark made it, shout out to them." Hey, thank you guys so much. I do appreciate everyone's support, and thank you for watching it with me. Reading chatter, first time viewer, time to watch the new Nuke ethically. Frogan's response, hell yeah. Reading chatter, if found my way from Reddit. Hi guys, welcome Reddit people, Reddit people, Reddit people. Reading chatter, I came from the H3 Snark Reddit. Ethan is so pathetic, while Hassan is unbothered and having a great time. Make sure you keep reminding him that. Make sure you keep reminding him so he knows that you guys know that he's having a good time. Can't let him forget. We're going to watch live, right? Frogan's response. We're going to watch it live, yes. Frogan begins her group viewing session of the nuke 1 minute after the nuke was released to the public. Wow, she did it 1 minute later? That's pretty crazy. The timing of Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke demonstrates that she did not pre-screen it to formulate her opinions prior to broadcast. Rather, Frogan timed her group viewing session to occur immediately after the nuke was released to capitalize on the great public interest in the nuke and siphon as many viewers as possible away from the original to herself. In other words, her priority was to personally and financially benefit from providing a substitute for the original, and commentary and criticism was a mere afterthought. I never learned to read. That's how I feel reading this. I just keep stumbling over every single sentence. On 40 separate occasions, Frogan's group viewing session comprised of watching the nuke, primarily at 1.5 to 1.75 speed, for 30 seconds or more with no commentary whatsoever, or, at most, including an unintelligible word or phrase. In most instances, Frogan is not even paying attention to the nuke, rather her head is buried in her phone texting someone else. In the aggregate, these excerpts comprise 72 minutes, approximately 70% of the nuke. The poverty of Frogan's commentary, coupled by showing long, unadulterated portions of the nuke, further demonstrates Frogan's intended her group viewing session to serve as a substitute for the original. So this is a breakdown of so the speed that you watched at, how it changed, and then the duration of the nuke shown accounting for speed. I would need to see how long her moments of speaking are, because this doesn't necessarily show me too much. Because this is just showing how much she lets play between each moment of pausing, but I would need to see that in line with how much she's pausing, or not how much, how long she's pausing each time. Because how long was the total of the video? It ended up being 3.5 hours. And she was watching it 2 times. This one is a little more. I don't know. It really does depend on what she was saying in those moments. But turning an hour-long video, or how long was it? An hour and a half or something? Turning that into 3 hours. It really would depend on what she was talking about, I guess, during it. In a completely separate instance from those listed above, Frogan provides an empty chair reaction. This is the part where it is just like, you're kind of dead to rights for at least this part. I.e., letting the nuke play while Frogan is completely off screen. At a certain point, Frogan asks her audience, "Can I use the bathroom, please? I'll leave it. I'll leave it playing." For 1 minute and 51 seconds, Frogan lets the nuke play at 1.5 speed, a total of 2 minutes and 46 seconds of original, while she is off screen relieving herself. When she returns, Frogan is practically silent for an additional minute and 3 seconds, a total of 1 minute and 34 seconds of the nuke. So that's from here she didn't speak for like 3 minutes of the video. Even when Frogan does pause the nuke, those moments frequently comprise of painfully pregnant pauses as Frogan struggles to find something to say. Many of these excruciating moments of silence, or primarily silence, last 10 seconds or longer. The consistent dead air during Frogan's group viewing session further emphasizes that commenting on and critiquing the nuke was an afterthought. So is this showing how small of, yeah, those are like the pauses she's taking. To the primary purpose of Frogan's group viewing session, i.e. to financially capitalize on the public interest in the nuke by siphoning views away from the original and to herself. If the opposite were true, Frogan would have taken her time to formulate her thoughts and select the portions of the nuke she intended to critique. Frogan also uses her group viewing session to infringe on other copyrighted works. For example, the intro of Frogan's group viewing session consists of playing numerous songs in their entirety by the artist Bad Bunny. Wait, what? She just plays fucking Bad Bunny songs at the beginning of her streams? Well, I guess she's on Twitch, so they're allowed to do that, right? Don't they have like licensing agreements where they're allowed to play music or some shit? While a countdown clock is displayed for when her stream will begin. On another occasion, she plays an uninterrupted 29-second excerpt of Arab Money remix by the artist Busta Rhymes without any commentary or criticism. Frogan fails to address the vast majority of points raised in the group, I almost called it the group, in the nuke, which further emphasizes that Frogan's primary purpose was to host a group viewing session of the nuke and that any criticism was an afterthought. The positions from the nuke, the points from the nuke that Frogan fails to address are detailed below. Hello, welcome in. Frogan fails to address the following points raised in the prologue of the nuke: Hassan's take on the Uyghurs in China, the primary political differences between Ethan and Hassan on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I almost called it the Israeli political conflict. Ethan's support of the Palestinian cause, the underlying concern of the Mizrahi Jews, the Israelis and Israelis in general, with the one-state solution, Hassan's support of terrorism, Ethan's commentary on Hassan and his friends discussing how they radicalize their audience through the radicalization funnel, Hassan conceded he is a propagandist, and Hassan's hatred of liberals. Frogan fails to address the following points raised in the Twitch parody sketch of the nuke. Let me slow down a little bit. Take a deep breath, sound out my words. Frogan fails to address the following points raised in the Twitch parody sketch of the nuke. Twitch embracing extremist rhetoric, Twitch rebranding terrorism, and the media bias report demonstrating Hassan is not a reliable source of information. Frogan fails to address nearly every point raised in the Houthi section of the nuke, namely Hassan glorifying and disseminating Houthi propaganda, the Houthis' atrocities and how they contradict leftist values, the critiques of Hassan indoctrinating Nick, e.g. the Houthi music video, calling the video a musical, calling the Houthis musical people, debunking Hassan's assertion on the hijacking of the Galaxy Leader, the critiques of Hassan's beliefs that the Jews will just leave Israel if commerce is disrupted, and that the majority of Israelis are Jews from Arab countries. The entire segment concerning al-Haddad, that Hassan deflects criticism by pulling the genocide card, and Hassan being unable to locate Yemen on a map. Frogan fails to address a single Frogan fails to address a single substantive point raised in the Hezbollah section of the nuke. Notably, Hassan glorifying and disseminating Hezbollah propaganda, Hezbollah's atrocities, and how they contradict leftist values, Hassan praising Nasrallah and Nasrallah's anti-Semitic statements, and Hassan's apologia of Hezbollah. Frogan also fails to address a single substantive point raised in the Hamas section of the nuke. Notably, Hassan disseminating and glorifying Hamas propaganda, Hamas atrocities and how they contradict leftist values, the critique of Hassan's reaction to the hostage release video, the sniper rifle video and Hassan's analysis of the same, the critique of Hassan's denial of sexual violence on October 7th, and the critique that Hassan denies the suffering of Israeli victims to make Hamas unimpeachable. Frogan's poverty of commentary on the nuke is so blatantly obvious that her chat consistently lambasts her lack of commentary. Notable examples are provided below. On at least 3 occasions, Frogan reads chats calling her out for her failure to address the points raised in the nuke, such as, "Do you have anything to say? Could you make at least one good point?" How anyone listens or watches you is insane. Frogan's responses to these critiques effectively concedes she is incapable of providing substantive commentary by stating, like, what commentary do you want me to add? By like, oh, this guy's a fucking idiot, he's mentally ill, or he's having a mental breakdown and unloaded it onto fucking YouTube and uploaded it to fucking YouTube. What do you want me to make a point on? Calling people bitch. On at least 3 occasions, Frogan reads chats calling her out for being a hypocrite, such as Frogan dragging the crew into the dispute. Despite Frogan previously stating that the crew should be left alone. Frogan is not a pacifist, despite claiming to be a pacifist. Frogan not being aware of the context of a clip, despite accusing Ethan of using clips out of context. Finally, on at least 2 occasions, Frogan reads chat calling her out for engaging in damage control or running defense. When Frogan does share her thoughts during her group viewing session, most of her statements that have no critical bearing or minimal critical bearing on the style of substance of the nuke. Both are some examples, or below are some examples. One of the most frequent utterances by Frogan is expressing excitement over the appearance or non-appearance of her friends. In these specific instances, Frogan does not address how her friends are portrayed in the nuke. On numerous occasions, Frogan makes utterances that are completely incoherent. On other occasions, Frogan will discuss completely unrelated topics, such as the purported harassment of her friends, the emergency notification she receives, thanking another streamer for raiding Frogan's thanking another streamer for raiding Frogan's stream, discussing a dispute between Ethan and Daniel Keem, arguing with her chat on completely unrelated points, and discussing members of the crew for the H3 podcast. In other instances, Frogan merely narrates what is shown in the nuke. Frequently, Frogan engages in superficial ad hominem attacks on Ethan without any further discussion, such as calling him stupid, crashing out, having a mental breakdown, and other personal attacks. See, now this is what I needed. This matched with these, I think it paints a clearer picture. Because this alone, I think is... I don't know why it was set up like this. I think they probably could have figured out a way to like explain this better without needing to create a chart, because they were able to create these paragraphs a little more clearly. But again, I scrolled and completely lost where I was. There's the ad hominem saying, Frogan complains about the length of the nuke with little explanation. It's too long. I don't want to watch it anymore, but I have to, so you guys keep giving me money. Other times, Frogan makes brief and surface level insults and complaints about the nuke, such as claiming she's disgusted watching the nuke, claiming the nuke is just a clip compilation with voiceovers, complaining how Hassan's dog Kaya is portrayed, calling the nuke a content sparkler, complaining about the nuke's use of the Miami Boys Choir, and brief insults of the sound effects, editing, and graphics used in the nuke. In other instances, Frogan makes blithe and unsupported false assertions about the nuke and Ethan. Frogan's inability or unwillingness to substantiate her comments demonstrates that if Frogan's primary purpose was to critique the nuke, she would have taken the time to substantiate her assertions. The lack of substantiation further emphasizes that Frogan's primary purpose was not to critique the nuke, but to provide a substitute for the original. Below are some examples of Frogan unsubstantiated false assertions. That Ethan should not provide political analysis at these timestamps. The irony of this comment is that Frogan proves that she is incompetent at providing political analysis herself. For example, when the nuke discusses Hassan's tweet to Senator Cotton of the schematic of the gun used to assassinate Shinzo Abe, Frogan initially confuses Senator Cotton with Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, who is Jewish, and only realizes her mistake when her chatter points out that AR, an abbreviation for Arkansas, is in Senator Cotton's username. Ethan doesn't care about Muslims, falsely claiming Arabs have not killed Israelis, rather only Israelis have killed Arabs. Ethan is not a Democrat. Gila called for killing baby militants. Ethan is dishonest. What the clips used in the nuke lack context, despite failing to provide or explain the omitted context. That the clips used in the nuke were pulled from Destiny's subreddit. Not only does Frogan fail to substantiate this assertion, she does not explain how this alters the meaning or content of the clip used in the nuke. In the rare instance where Frogan does engage in the content of the nuke, her comments primarily concern her favorite topic, herself. Most of the observations have little to no critical bearing on the style or substance of the nuke. The remainder involve making repetitive comments to defend herself, demonstrating Frogan could not have used far less of the nuke to make her critiques to defend herself. Examples include demonstrating Frogan could have used far less of the nuke to make her critiques to defend herself. Examples include Frogan expressing excitement that she was included in the nuke, indulging in her fantasy that Ethan is obsessed with her, when the opposite is clearly the case. Repeatedly regurgitating her bitterness that the nuke's joke, that she is paid by guitar, expressing bewilderment at what was wrong with her comments and posts attacking Ethan, gloating over her Rising Star Award, thanking Ethan for using her recent picture of her, taking issues with being described as Hassan's head mod, despite the nuke never making that claim. During the segment of the nuke critiquing Frogan for her comment towards Ludwig, Frogan repeats the same explanation and apology throughout the segment. During the segment, the nuke critiquing Frogan for her comments that she wishes veterans get PTSD, Frogan repeats her assertion that the clip was taken out of context. But when the context is shown, i.e. that her comment does not apply to veterans who confess their sins, it does not ameliorate the criticism, repeatedly stating she is embarrassed by what she said despite continuing to laugh over her statements about veterans, and falsely stating she was banned for 30 days due to her statement, when the actual reason for her ban was the racial tier list she hosted at TwitchCon. We know for certain that the ban was for the TwitchCon panel and not Frogan's statement about veterans because all the panelists received the same 30-day ban on the same day. During the segment of the nuke critiquing Frogan's X post on October 7th, Frogan repeats her paltry and unpersuasive attempts to excuse her posts by focusing solely on the time it was made, the morning of October 7th on the East Coast, which was over 10 hours after the attacks began. Frogan also strategically omits that she liked several posts on X praising Hamas on October 7th. During the segment of the nuke critiquing Frogan's panel at TwitchCon 2024, Frogan makes such a transparent attempt to damage control that her chat calls her out for it. Frogan's damage control consists of making brief statements that are minimally related or completely unrelated to the nuke, repeatedly denying she knew that the word Sabra meant a Jew born in Israel, despite claiming to be an expert in the Middle East, providing no substantive response to being called anti-Semitic, shifting the focus from the discussion on Jews from Arab countries to her family's expulsion during the 1948 war, and repeatedly attempting, albeit unsuccessfully, to minimize Denims' comments that Ethan should be put into a new category called Zionist, and that if Frogan's statements about veterans constitute as separate infractions, she would have received additional sanctions from those received by her fellow panelists. Interesting. Ethan is a Zionist because of his takes on Palestine, making a bizarre claim that she has no role in creating thumbnail or uploading the video of the racial tier list from TwitchCon to her podcast channel, and claiming that it is easy to debunk blatant lies, yet failing to debunk anything material or substantive. During the segment of the Nuke on Twitch banning the creation of new accounts in Israel and Palestine, Frogan repeats the same critique that the ban includes Palestine. That's pretty good. During the segment of the Nuke on Twitch banning the creation of new accounts in Israel and Palestine, Frogan repeats the same critique that the bans included Palestine. So she just went, they included Palestine too. And Palestine, duh. On 2 occasions, oh wait, did I just skip this again? I did. To be certain, there are brief and fleeting moments when Frogan makes a highly transformative use of the Nuke, where the Nuke seeks to expose how Hassan radicalizes people online to be anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli. Frogan attempts to use the Nuke for the exact opposite purpose, to radicalize her audience and be more anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. The transformative nature of these moments are undermined, if not erased, by showing far more of the Nuke than is necessary to achieve this purpose. Examples include, on 2 occasions, the Nuke discusses Mizrahi Jews living in Israel. When the Nuke discusses that the number of Mizrahi Jews expelled from Arab countries exceeded the number of Palestinians expelled during the Nakba, Frogan makes the facially frivolous assertion that this is a form of erasing the Nakba. Frogan does not explain how recognizing a tragedy that occurred to Mizrahi Jews erases the tragedy of the Nakba. Rather, Frogan provides an anecdote about how her paternal grandparents were told to leave and come back in 4 months. On 3 occasions, Frogan accuses Ethan of conflating Judaism with Zionism. It is cruelly ironic that someone who hates Israel has the audacity to. Not only is it cruelly ironic for someone who hates Israel has the audacity to opine on this issue, it also reveals Frogan's fundamental lack of understanding of Jewish people. A 2019-2020 Pew Research Center survey of 4,718 American Jews found 82% considered caring about Israel to be essential or important to what it means to be Jewish. In another poll conducted in December 2024 of 800 American Jewish adults, 70% think anti-Zionist movements are anti-Semitic by definition, and only 9% strongly disagree with that statement. The Nuke takes a vast majority of the screen for Frogan's group viewing session, while Frogan sequesters herself to a small portion of the screen that de-emphasizes her presence. Frogan's objective was to provide a large and unobstructed view of the Nuke to her audience, which further emphasizes her primary purpose was to provide a substitute for the original. Frogan's use of the Nuke was highly commercial. During her group viewing session, Frogan repeatedly calls upon her a Zionist is someone who. I was reading. I'm so stupid. Sorry. Frogan's use of the Nuke was highly commercial. During her group viewing session of the Nuke, Frogan repeatedly called upon her audience to pay her for a subscription to her channel. Thanks, new subscribers, and to promote her podcast. Oh my god. Both. I still have one more to read. At least we're almost done with this one. We have like a couple pages left. God damn. Enjoy the song real quick.
Do me a favor real quick and take out your laptop and look up this.
We're going to listen to Tom's first beat. Whew, it's calmed me. Both before and during Frogan's group viewing session of the Nuke, Frogan places her paid subscription goal prominently on the screen, including a chat PowerPoint topic, at a heart cake baking stream and sleep stream. Indeed, during her group viewing session of the Nuke, Frogan received numerous paid subscriptions and donations, which would result in an announcement playing over the Nuke. Further, Frogan received advertising revenue from her group viewing session of the nuke. Finally, on her Twitch page, where Frogan's group viewing session was located, Frogan placed buttons soliciting paid subscriptions and donations beneath the video of Frogan's group viewing session of the nuke. As to the second fair use factor, the fact the nuke was released a minute prior to Frogan's group viewing session does not weigh in her favor. Further, while containing numerous documentary and factual elements, the nuke contains numerous creative elements, which weighs against fair use. As to the third fair use factor, the factor weighs heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent Frogan's use was excessive for any potential criticism of the nuke, particularly in light of minimal level of commentary and highly commercial nature of Frogan's group viewing session. This is particularly true with Frogan repeatedly provides brief statements, many of which have little to no critical bearing on the nuke.
So I'm calling out all musicians who are really good at.
For some reason, Tom's beat is super quiet.
You know, I want that beat. I know.
The fourth and most important fair use factor weighs the most heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent that Frogan intended and succeeded to provide a market substitute for the nuke for the reasons set forth below. A statement identified in paragraph 62A above, showing the nuke in its entirety with minimal commentary, starting her group viewing session a minute after the nuke was released to the public when the interest in the nuke was at its apex. The first inducement post and second inducement post by the H3 Snark mods, due to Frogan siphoning the audience for the nuke to her group viewing session, TEI lost views and advertising revenue. This is basically the same as the last one we read. Several other members of Hassan Waiting Room conducted a group viewing session to the nuke immediately after its release, which resulted in further lost views and lost advertising revenue to TEI. First claim of relief, so it's showing that they own all of it. They're like, this is ours, and we're calling them out on grounds of copyright on 17 USC section 106. So second claim of relief. TEI by reference. I want to see if. This is about the mods. Oh wait, that wasn't it. I'm just done. I'm dumb. I wanted to see if we just said the same thing about the $150,000 or whatever. Bankrupting companies and paying for likes, and if once ain't another bucket, man, I'm suing them twice. Hey Ryan, what's for breakfast? A wet and breakfast. This sue on my third time. I haven't learned my lesson. Is if you didn't make enough of a first impression, they call them cut, cause up ain't his first direction. Getting slandered in the media, at home in bed, like dear Wikipedia. They writing mean things that ain't true, but they really are. Plus there's this guy. Frogan's acts of copyright infringement were done with actual or constructive knowledge to claim of bankruptcy and waving the balance, and by the way, man, there's a prayer for relief. Someone say it's the phallus. 47, why you dress so childish? Trailer this thing's flip, fees are delinquent, and don't get me started on why your jeans got sequence. Profits plus, yeah. So here's the $150,000. Yeah, it's the same stuff for all three of them. They want the profits plus TEI's losses attributable to defendant's infringement of the nuke, the exact sum to be proven at the time of the trial, or if elected, statutory damages in the amount of $150,000. So now we will move on to the next one, the final, Denims. So let's go delete that. I guess I can delete all these ones that are video. So that's a video file, that's a video file, that's a video file. This one does have to do with Denims. This was just that mega thread about that. Again, just another thing. That's that other, this is the other mega thread. Another video clip we can't watch. Another video clip we can't watch. And these were the emails sent about the counter notifications to Reddit. So all that really matters here is this one, which is just the same. Denims is live reacting to today's H3 podcast episode and the content nuke video Ethan is publishing in about an hour. So there's that too. So this one is going to Denims. We getting a little froggy. A little froggy. Does this count? It's the one Ben 10. I forget what alien this one is. The little one. I also have a mini Jesus and another mini Jesus. Look, they can kiss. Is that blasphemy? Maybe. Or is that just the love Jesus talked about in the Bible? Just saying. God damn, that song's loud. Okay, so now we are here to Denims, the nightmare on Denim Street. We're relying on you to stay alive so we don't have to give the Nuke views. Yeah, I'm gonna stream it. Since he's confirmed it's coming out today, I'm gonna stream it. Denims prior to reacting to content Nuke Hassan Piker. Well guys, if you enjoyed not giving any views to that terrible video, give me a follow, subscribe, throw a prime if you like my content. Hey, if you like my content, remember to like and subscribe. Remember to do it right now. Drop a donation. Do it. Why aren't you? Stop. Stop whatever you're doing. Okay, but so this lawsuit is about ending the practice of lazy reaction videos that copy entire copyrighted works and purposefully siphon views and revenue. Yada 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 yada. We already saw this part. This case involves a group viewing session hosted by defendant Denims. Denims specifically intended her group viewing session to siphon views and revenue away from TEI's copyrighted work, content Nuke Hassan Piker. Denims timed her group viewing session to coincide with the exact moment TEI released the works. Her timing was intended to capitalize on the intense public interest in the works and siphon the maximum amount of views and revenue away from the works to herself by providing the works in their entirety, or nearly in their entirety. The moderators of the H3 Snark subreddit, the H3 Snark mods, heavily promoted Denims' group viewing sessions as an alternative to the original works on the H3 Snark subreddit, H3 Snark. As a direct result, Denims' group viewing session of the works peaked at approximately 45,800 concurrent viewers when her previous streams only achieved approximately 3,300. Denims greatly profited from her group viewing sessions, or her group viewing session of the works through advertising revenue, donation, and paid subscription. Like most lazy reaction videos, Denims peppers her group viewing session of TEI's works with primarily brief and sporadic observations, which can be categorized as follows. Most frequently, Denims will watch unadulterated portions of the work and briefly pause to give short surface level and often repetitive observations that provide little to no new information, new aesthetics, or new insights or understandings on the original works. Other times, Denims' commentary has little to no critical bearing or on the style or purpose. So this is all kind of the same that we had seen. The introduction is they're kind of copy and pasting a lot of this, I can tell, because why wouldn't they? Yes, we saw that. That's the factual stuff. Denims, the alt-left's answer to Kelly and Conway. Denims LARPs live-action roleplays as a revolutionary form. Oh my god. Again, another drink. I need to restart. Every time I need to really recenter myself. No, yeah, you can tell he copy and pasted the longer parts so he can enjoy the really fun parts, the descriptive parts. I chose not to pursue law as a career because I thought it would be boring. What a dope. Hey, law can either be extremely boring or extremely like exciting. You could be getting shot at, or you could just be dealing with like some old dude that's been beating his wife for too long, and you're like, this is just sad. She's not leaving him. Evil stuff in the world, am I right? But Denim's LARP's live-action role plays as a revolutionary from the comfort of her bedroom in California. She is a prolific purveyor of misinformation and speaks with great confidence on topics where her knowledge leaves much to be desired. Denims repeatedly inserts herself into public controversies by employing poor judgment, knee-jerk contrarianism, and a consistent impulse to defend the indefensible, including copyright infringement, terrorism, and extremism. Denims is one of the most loyal and ardent defenders of Hassan Piker, Hassanabi Hassan, the most prominent alt-left streamer on Twitch. Much like Scientologists engage in fair game, Denims ruthless attacks with reckless abandon anyone who disagrees with her or Hassan. She parrots Hassan's style, rhetoric, and content strategy, i.e., regularly streaming React content with minimal transformation or commentary. As such, she has assumed a leading role in Hassan's waiting room, a collective of streamers who cultishly follow Hassan and parasitically leech off of his audience by streaming before and after him. Is that how Ethan sees me? Am I just a cultish follower who parasitically leeches off of the audience? I'm sorry, guys. I've been sapping you of your essence. Everybody unsubscribe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. On November 17th, 2023, in a now deleted video, Denims reads Osama bin Laden's letter to America in its entirety on stream. She frequently expresses agreement and support for the letter, such as, America deserved 9/11. I can't disavow facts, man. I can't Wikipedia fair game Scientology. That's not what was next, but sometimes these sentences are too close together. I can't disavow reality. That's not how that works, bro. Denims reading from the letter. Why do they attack us in New York and Washington? If Sharon is a man of peace and in the eyes of George Bush, then we are also men of peace. America does not understand the language of manners and principles, so we are addressing it using the language it understands. Denim's response. He's not wrong about that. The U.S. only understands violence. Bin Laden's criticism of the United States are all correct. Despite Twitch's prohibition on terrorist propaganda, Twitch gave Denims a slap on the wrist by banning her for just a day. Was Bin Laden good when he was like, yeah, we say jihad, we're calling jihad on everybody, and we're not aiming for civilians, but if they get hit, not my fault. Hey, if they're in the way. Was that cool when Bin Laden said that? On December 12th, 2022, in a now deleted video, Denims responded to the December 8th, 2022 video of June Nicole of Shoe on Head, which critiqued Balenciaga's advertising campaign that depicted minors in highly sexualized BDSM attire. Rather than acknowledging the widespread concern, Denims took an absurdly grotesque position of defending Balenciaga's advertising campaign and attempted to paint Shoe on Head as homophobic, despite Shoe on Head not mentioning homosexuality whatsoever. Denim's involvement in the public controversy known as ReactGate provides great insight into her willful disregard for copyright. In early 2022, Hassan and Denims, along with several other Twitch streamers, received intense criticism for conducting group viewing sessions of third-party copyrighted content without permission. In these group viewing sessions, streamers like Hassan and Denims would watch entire copyrighted works with little to no commentary, sometimes even letting the video play when they were not present or while the streamer was sleeping. The controversy reached a fever pitch when these group viewing sessions involved mainstream television shows and films. On February 1st, 2022, the online content creator known as JXC released a video entitled Hassan Piker, Jinx, and the Issue of Reaction Content. In the video, JXC drew a distinction between reaction videos that provided substantive critique and or additional insight into the original work and lazy reaction videos that resemble group viewing sessions. In particular, JXC focused on Hassan's group viewing sessions, including his poverty of commentary, his penchant for doing an empty chair reaction, where he lets the video play while he is completely off screen, and his failure to credit the author of the original video or link to the original content. In a now deleted response video, Denims defended the unauthorized use of copyrighted content by asserting that viewers prefer watching streamers over original uploads, particularly when the material is curated. She claimed that established fair use standards are irrelevant to live streaming, including Twitch content, and need to be transformative through substantial commentary or editing. Rather, Denims claims that a streamer personality alone can justify the unauthorized rebroadcast of copyrighted material. That is just like a random, unfounded assertion, but even so, like, what was I about to point out? Just because people prefer watching the streamers over the original upload doesn't mean that they didn't want to watch the upload. All it means is that they want to get it through like their favorite streamer. That doesn't mean that they don't want to watch the video at all. And also, why would any of that matter in regards to copyright? I think that they think market implies like the market value implies the audience base or something. Maybe that, like, I think that's probably what they think, but that's obviously wrong. On February 6, 2025, Denims and JXC conducted a debate about the propriety of group viewing sessions that was moderated by the online creator named ChudLogic. The debate video. During the debate, Denims makes several damning statements about her personal perception on the unauthorized use of copyrighted content. Some notable moments are listed below. Early on in the debate, Denims acknowledges that she uses third-party content as filler and that it siphons views away from the original. I just want to be clear on my opinion. On like filler content and stuff. Like, I think filler content, you shouldn't do it. I know I do it as a React streamer, and I try to do it with only like with Vox videos or Vice videos and stuff like that, because I'm not like directly ripping from one content creator and not like a whole team and stuff. And most of those videos have like 5 million views, and I only get like 500 viewers. Likely, I'm not even going to take out, if I'm taking out 50 views from the video, it's a lot harder to feel like, I guess, bad about it. It's funny because in this, she's acknowledging that she is at least stripping them of 50 views, which would be copyright infringement. Like, that's just... You can think that it's a bad system or whatever, it's stupid, but that doesn't mean that it's not the way that it is. And also, why would taking away from a team effort be better than taking away from an individual? That part is also kind of a weird thing to say. Shortly thereafter, Denims accepts her own bias in the situation and her desire to use third-party content. Maybe I'm coping because I'm a reactor and I want to have the content. Later in that debate, Denims sets forth her theory to justify a group viewing session of third-party content, that Twitch streamers are curators that provide a communal experience of watching content with their audience who do not want to take the time to find YouTube content on their own. I've made this statement before about like people being curators, like people like the curation element of, some people get home from work, you know, like people think it's all children. Some people are adults that get home from work and they watch streamers because they like the idea of not having to look for videos to watch. They don't want to have to look through a bunch of stuff on YouTube to figure out what videos are good or what are bad. They can just listen to their favorite streamer talk about, you know, these different topics. But the whole thing is if they're picking the streamer because they like their perspectives on these topics, or because they don't talk at all and are just curating videos. Because you could curate videos all you want. Create playlists on YouTube. Just create on your channel public playlists of different videos that people can go watch. That isn't stripping away any views, and it would actually benefit your fan base a lot. But it doesn't benefit you a lot, which is the main thing that you care about. You know, I'm sure if you click on a random part of the video, I might not be saying anything. Sure, whatever. I might walk away from the screen, but it's about the communal thing. It's not about the actual show at a certain point. It's oh, it's the same reason you watch shows with your friends. You want to watch it with other people, right? I think she really did not come to this debate with any actual thought out points. It was just no, you get what I mean, right? Who cares? It's fun. Right? And they're just arguing no, what are you talking about? Wait, is this just the same thing over and over again? I think when it comes to streamers on Twitch, a lot of people go watch streamers to watch with almost as a curator. So then don't actually want to go through YouTube themselves and watch a bunch of, that's literally what I just said. And they probably never will go through YouTube and click a bunch of videos. They like going through Twitch. They like going to Twitch because, they might click through the videos, but it's just easier, yeah. Because they have it as this streamer is curating fun content and I want to watch. I think that people who are watching content on Twitch, curated Twitch content on Twitch, well, it's not curated Twitch content, it's curated just internet content through Twitch, aren't necessarily people that would be watching content on YouTube. A lot of the time, the reason that they go to watch reaction streamers is because they don't want to have to do the effort of going and scrolling through YouTube and clicking on recommends. I keep wanting to read debate video. The people who watch Twitch content are specifically there to watch it so they don't have to scroll through YouTube and find a video that they like. Denims, however, ultimately concedes that when a viewer watches content curated by a Twitch streamer, it serves as a substitute for the original. There's no point in watching something a second time. You already watched it. Maybe if you're watching it with some other people or something, it's been a long time, you might rewatch the video. But once you watch the video in one place, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to go back and do the same. If someone watches content on someone else's stream, there is very low likelihood that they're going to watch it separately and give you the view or the like. How can you say this and not understand that you are saying that it's it's bad? Well, yeah, of course people aren't going to be going and watching the original. That's why I think, honestly, the best way to do reactions is to give it at least a couple days, whatever video just came out. Because if you watch it immediately, you're clearly, stripping it of views. Reddit. Gotta scroll down again, find the right spot. See, this one's gonna have a lot more to read. So this is a critical book review. Let's say. Okay, here we go. Denims group viewing session failed to make a fair use of the countdown episode. Oh, okay, so that's why this one's so long. It's because it's making it's for all of the videos. Great job, Denims. You did it. You did the most copyright infringement. Good job. Yeah, watching something with friends would be equivalent to watching something together on Discord, and streaming to 50 people on Twitch is nothing like that. Even if, as soon as you get over, 5 people, I think you've completely lost that, guise of it being well, it's just friends hanging out, you know what I mean? Just go try and hang out with 15 people and see how easy it is to, talk to everyone and get, they're there for the video. Fly me to the moon. Exactly. But Denim's group viewing session failed to make a fair use of the Countdown episode. It is readily apparent that the primary and overriding purpose of Denims' use of the Countdown episode was to commercially exploit a group viewing session of the Countdown episode and have it serve as a substitute for the original. This is evidenced by watching long sections of the Countdown episode without any or very little interruption, frequently for several minutes at a time. In a complete separate instance, Denims provides an empty chair reaction, i.e., letting the Countdown episode play while Denims is completely off screen. At a certain point, Denims informs her audience that she is going to pee. For 2 minutes and 21 seconds, Denims lets the Countdown episode play while she is off screen relieving herself. At this time, when she returns, Denims is silent for an additional minute. In total, Denims' group viewing session of the Countdown episode was 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 56 seconds. During the group viewing session, Denims provided approximately 4 minutes and 43 seconds of brief and superficial commentary that usually has little critical bearing on the Countdown episode. For 43 seconds of 43 seconds of partially related commentary on the Countdown episode that meander into unrelated topics, and 2 minutes and 12 seconds of unrelated or unintelligible comments. In simple terms, out of the total runtime of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 56 seconds, the Countdown episode played uninterrupted for nearly 88% of the total runtime. Denims also had the Countdown episode take up approximately 3/4 of the screen, while she also occupies approximately 1/4 of the screen that de-emphasizes her presence. Denims' objective was to provide a large and unobstructed view of the Countdown episode to her audience, which further emphasizes her primary purpose was to provide a substitute for the original. Denims' use of the Countdown episode was clearly commercial. Not only did she perceive paid... I don't know what's so wrong. Can someone tell me why I'm reading every word wrong? Has my brain stopped working? Am I having an aneurysm? Is this a stroke? Stroking something. Denims' use of the Countdown episode was clearly commercial. Not only did she receive paid subscriptions, donations, and advertising revenue during her group viewing session, she used the Countdown episode to advertise her group viewing session of the Nuke, as evidenced by early on in her group viewing session, Denims adds a chyron at the top of her screen stating content Nuke drops at 1:30 p.m. PST. Early on in her group viewing session, Denims adds a countdown timer for when the Nuke will be publicly released, encouraging people to watch her group viewing session of the Nuke by stating, if you want to watch it, come enjoy the watch party somewhere else. As to the second fair use factor, the fact that the Countdown episode was simultaneously broadcast with Denims' group viewing session does not weigh in her favor. Further, while containing numerous factual elements, the Countdown episode contains numerous creative elements, which weighs against fair use. Use of the fair use factor, as to the third fair use factor, this factor weighs heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent Denims' use was excessive for any potential criticism of the Countdown episode, particularly in light of the minimal level of commentary and highly commercial nature of Denims' group viewing session. The fourth and most important fair use factor weighs heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent that Denims intended and succeeded to provide a market substitute for the Countdown episode for the reason set forth below. Broadcasting her group viewing sessions of the Countdown episode at the same time the Countdown episode was broadcast, showing nearly the entire Countdown episode with minimal commentary, the first inducement post, the second inducement post, and the third inducement post by the H3 Snark mods, due to Denims siphoning the audience for the Countdown. Episode 4, so that's what that other one was. There were the two exhibits that were showing the inducement posts to all of the different streamers, and then there was the third inducement post that was specifically about Denims doing the Countdown episode. Due to Denims siphoning the audience for the countdown episode to her group viewing session, TEI lost views and advertising revenue it would ordinarily receive from the individuals who watched Denims' group viewing session instead of the countdown episode. If Denims' conduct were to become widespread, i.e. simultaneously broadcast a TEI podcast episode with minimal commentary, it would result in further loss of views and advertising revenue to TEI. Denims' group viewing session failed to make a fair use of the Nuke. As demonstrated below, Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke exemplifies her beliefs about copyright that she expresses during ReactGate. Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke epitomizes her unfounded opinion that copyright infringement and fair use principles are inapplicable in the context of live streaming, particularly on Twitch. Her misguided notion that she is not obligated to transform a copyrighted work with substantial critical commentary and editing. It's funny because she's almost right that yes, the personality does transform the work. Like a streamer's personality does transform the work. But you have to be showing your personality to do that transformation. You just sitting there like,
In fact, I remember he had the
I know I'm handsome, but like, it ain't changing that much of the video. But her narcissistic and misplaced sense of privilege that her personality is sufficient to justify the highly commercial, unauthorized exploitation of the copyright work in its entirety. Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke was the pinnacle of her career. At its peak, Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke received approximately 45,800 concurrent viewers. This was exponentially more concurrent viewers than Denims ever received in her entire career. Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke also put Denims' online career into overdrive. In the days leading up to her group viewing session, Denims' peak concurrent viewers ranged approximately from 3,100 to 4,500. After her group viewing session, the Nuke Denims' concurrent viewers ranged from 5,100 to 6,700. Below are true and current screenshots from the page of Denims' Twitch channel on Twitch Tracker. This is because no one was... I'm assuming this is because she wasn't streaming or something. But followers gained. Where's the gray? Is there supposed to be a gray bar? Or I guess it's not showing those. It is readily apparent that the primary and overriding purpose of Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke was to provide a substitute for the original. It is equally obvious that any commentary of the Nuke was an afterthought. Denims made numerous... My cat's being fed. There we go. Denims made numerous statements explicitly stating her group viewing session was intended to serve as a substitute for the Nuke. Denims entitled her group viewing session Ethan Klein Hassan Content Nuke Watch Party. This is not a drill. Original and added emphasis. So I imagine it was all capitalized, but then they emphasized the watch party. Shortly after her group viewing session of the Nuke, Denims reads a message from her chat stating, "We're relying on you to stay alive so we don't give more views to the Nuke." Denims replies with, "Yeah, I'm going to stream it since he confirmed it's coming out today. We're going to stream it." Immediately prior and throughout Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke, she prominently displayed a chyron at the top of the screen that stated, "Watching Hassan Content Nuke from Ethan Klein." Exhibit K, part of the video thing. During Denims' group viewing session, Denims responded to a chatter stating, "Unfortunately, we are watching the Ethan Nuke." Immediately after her group viewing session, the Nuke... Oh my god, I hate the way it's worded like this. Immediately after her group viewing session of the Nuke, Denims states, "Well guys, if you enjoyed not giving any views to that terrible video, follow, subscribe, throw a prime if you like the content, if you enjoyed your time here. I appreciated you guys tuning in with me because I'm going to be honest, I did not want to watch that by myself." On February 1st, 2025, i.e. the day after Denims' group viewing session of the Nuke, Denims stated, Later, after streaming, I found out I got signal boosted by Hassan, Hoscord, and the subreddit. What is it called? H3 Snark? And I know all those people didn't want to give the video, i.e. the nuke, any views, which is why they watched it with me, and probably a lot of people, because they ended their H3 show immediately before releasing the video, so there probably was a lot of people that came to watch it here, because they wanted to see what someone who would disagree with it would say. Denims attempted to feign ignorance of H3 Snark in transparency is transparently and comically false. Rather, it is clear that Denims and the H3 Snark mods coordinated their efforts. Indeed, after ending her group viewing session of the nuke, Denims' screen shows that she had the H3 Snark subreddit on her screen the entire time. A true and correct clip from Denims' February 1st, 2025 is located on the flash drive of Exhibit L. Denims began her group viewing session of the nuke 1 minute after the nuke was released to the public. Example K, the timing of Denims' group viewing session of the nuke demonstrated that she did not pre-screen it to formulate her opinion prior to the broadcast. This is the same thing it said about the rest of them. The nuke was to siphon views. Yep. On 74 separate occasions, Denims' group viewing session consisted of watching the nuke for 30 seconds or more with no commentary whatsoever, or at most an unintelligible word or phrase. In total, these excerpts comprised over 70 minutes of the nuke, i.e. 70% of its total runtime. The poverty of Denims' commentary, coupled by frequently showing long, unadulterated portions of the nuke, further demonstrates that the override... Oh my god, I keep getting like acid reflux and stuff. Oh, I hate reading for long periods of time. I could never be a narrator, audio book reader. Further demonstrates that the overriding and dominant purpose of Denims' group viewing session was to serve as a substitute for the original and not to provide critical commentary. So this is showing how it's broken up. Again, I kind of don't like the way that they did these charts because I feel like it's confusing. Like showing every 30 seconds that they are pausing almost kind of goes against what you're trying to show, I feel like at times. But I understand that most of these are also over a minute, but either way, it's about what they're saying in between these spaces. For a majority of her group viewing session, Denims speaks briefly after showing a much longer excerpt of the nuke. The fact that the excerpts Denims shows of the nuke frequently eclipse her statements further emphasizes that the primary purpose of her group viewing session was to provide a substitute from the original, and any commentary was merely an afterthought. During Denims' group viewing session, she admits she is not providing sufficient commentary because she does not want to pause frequently. This further emphasizes the primary purpose of her group viewing session was not to watch the nuke and add any commentary, and any commentary was an afterthought. If I sat here and explained why he was wrong for like half of these things, we would be here for another 20 hours. I've gone in and tried to explain why he's incorrect on like 1 in every 10 incorrect things, or 1 in every 10 incorrect takes, because I'm not trying to spend an entire week here. I don't even understand. Well, you should have. You should have spent an entire week there explaining, because you would have gotten more viewers, more subscribers, more time. Seems kind of dumb to be like, I don't even care about this. I only have 46,000 people watching me right now. You should have fucking dragged it as far as you could. If I sat here and explained Denims' admission that she failed to address the majority of points raised in the nuke is self-evident. This further emphasizes that Denims' primary purpose was to host a group viewing session of the nuke, and that any criticism was an afterthought. Denims fails to address the following points raised in the prologue of the nuke. Ethan's criticism of Hassan's takes on Russia and China. Okay, so I imagine these are kind of similar to what was said about Frogan and Caseyron. Yeah, just a failure to address the actual substance of the content nuke. Things like, you know, Houthi. I forget what they call him now. Houthi Chalamet. Is that it? Denims fails to address all the stuff and then this and then that. Twitch re-platformed and hiring. Denims even mocks the Nuke for making a fair use of third-party clips by stating, "Isn't it weird that a lot of these clips are like 5 seconds short, not 5 seconds long, 5 seconds short?" This statement reveals Denims' complete and total ignorance of fair use, particularly in the context of reaction videos. When Denims does speak during the group viewing session, most of her statements are brief, particularly in relation to the preceding segment shown of the Nuke, and have no particular bearing or minimal critical bearing on the style or substance of the Nuke. Below are some examples. On numerous occasions, Denims makes utterances that are completely incoherent or unclear. Denims spends time speaking with her chat about topics completely unrelated or only minimally related to the Nuke. Denims spends time discussing unrelated or minimally related topics such as an unrelated meme, conducting a poll, referencing the length of the Nuke, announcing a raid, attacking a chatter who critiques her, claiming she is going insane, she wants to play the video game Marvel Rivals, her cat, that the streamer Pokemon, who likes Denims and is of Moroccan ancestry, speaks fake Arabic, making crass jokes about Ben Shapiro and his love life, and a technical issue. Denims frequently makes superficial comments with little to no elaboration, such as the Nuke resembles a high school project or middle school project, narrating what is depicted, that Ethan is so brave. Ethan's performance resembles someone on a first day of acting school, that she is going to die of cringe and begs it to end. That Ethan is crashing out, complaining about the editing, that the video treats the audience as morons and trying to trick them, that Ethan is putting out garbage, complimenting her own outfit, and excitement that a particular clip of hers is shown in the Nuke. Since Denims did not pre-screen the Nuke, she frequently expresses confusion about a particular excerpt of the Nuke she just watched. Since Denims did not pre-screen the Nuke, she frequently makes comments that are later contradicted by the Nuke itself. If Denims' primary purpose was to comment on the Nuke, she could have easily avoided these embarrassing moments by watching the Nuke beforehand and taking the time to formulate her critique. The reason Denims failed to do so is obvious. Her primary purpose was to host a group viewing session of the Nuke immediately upon its release, and any commentary was an afterthought. Below are some examples of Denims making comments on the Nuke that are later refuted by the Nuke itself. In the section of the Nuke discussing Hassan's apologia of China's genocide and enslavement of the Uyghurs, she claims that Ethan fails to point out how Hassan is wrong. Shortly after making these comments, the Nuke provides the evidence that Denims claims was absent. After seeing the evidence, Denim just expresses confusion. In the section discussing the type of fans Hassan attracts, such as the online content creator Dating and Money, Denims claims that Dating and Money is not a Hassan fan, but a fan of another streamer. Immediately after making the comment, the Nuke shows a clip of Dating and Money meeting Hassan and effusively praising him. In the section discussing Al-Haddad, Denims claims that there is no evidence demonstrating he is a member or supporter of the Houthis. Shortly thereafter, the Nuke shows Al-Haddad social media posts that refute this assertion, and Denims provides no comment. In the section discussing Nasrallah, Denims claims that the difference between Ethan and Hassan is that Ethan praised former Israeli Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant, which is false, and Hassan never praised Nasrallah. Immediately after making the claim, Denims plays the excerpt of the Nuke where Hassan praises Nasrallah. In the section discussing the systemic use of rape on October 7th, Denims immediately denies any rapes occurred. She is immediately confronted with the headlines from news organizations, victim testimonies, and United Nations report refuting her denials. When Ethan cites the Ban of Destiny as an example of Twitch's inconsistent enforcement of its community guidelines, Denims claims that the ban was due to Destiny's statements condoning Kyle Rittenhouse killing. killing protesters, only to realize that the ban was due to Destiny calling Keffel's inbred. Due to Denim's inability to critique the style or substance of the nuke, she frequently goes on long and completely unrelated tangents that have nothing to do with the style or substance of the nuke. Some notable examples are provided below. After Ethan's critique of Hassan's apologia of China and imperialism and authoritarianism, of Chinese imperialism and authoritarianism, Denims goes on a nonsensical tangent about the Chinese credit score system, which is not discussed or referenced in the nuke whatsoever. After Ethan's critique of Hassan's apologia of China's genocide of the Uyghurs, Denim goes on a rambling diatribe about that no one cares about the Uyghurs, Western media, the United States is worse than China, falsely stating that disabled Americans lose disability benefits when they get married, incarceration levels in the United States, and the treatment of transgender individuals in the United States. After Ethan's critique of Frogan, Denims goes on a protracted tangent about how Frogan is more important than her, or is more American than her. Sorry, she's also more important than her, probably, or maybe not. Frogan's probably less important than Denims, because Denims got 40,000 views. Come on. True to form, Denims makes statements based on hallucinatory misrepresentations of the contents of the nuke. By shadowboxing an imaginary version of the nuke, completely divorced from reality, Denims fails to address the actual style or substance of the original. Some notable examples include the section of the nuke concerning Ethan and Hassan's discussion shortly after October 7th. Ethan critiques the only online figure supported by Hassan Ethan critiques an online figure supported by Hassan who legitimizes killing Israeli infants by calling them baby settlers. Hassan attempts to justify the use of the term. Denims misrepresents the excerpt and claims Ethan called Palestinian infants baby terrorists, and Hassan attempted to humanize the infants of Israeli settlers. In the section where Ethan critiques Hassan's head mod, oh my god. Those 42 bong rips still hitting. Denims misrepresents yada yada. In the section where Ethan critiques Hassan's head mod, Denims claims that Ethan called Frogan the head mod, despite Ethan never making such a statement. After Ethan explains that he is now called a Nazi after advocating a two-state interim solution, Denims claims Ethan asserted that Hassan told people to call him a Nazi, which Ethan never claimed. After Ethan critiques Hassan's claim that the Houthis hijacked ships to cause Israelis to leave Israel from the economic inconvenience, Denims rewrites the excerpt by claiming Hassan stated that Houthis are placing economic pressure on Israel to induce them to pressure their government to end the war in Gaza. After Ethan shows photographs he took in Israel of Mizrahi Jews preparing to sell hummus, Denims makes a bizarre claim that Ethan is assuming they are Israeli, despite Ethan having just explained that they were photographs of Mizrahi Jews from Israel. Again, true to form, Denims repeatedly makes brief, blithe, and unsubstantiated assertions throughout her group viewing session of the nuke. The vast majority of these remarks are misleading and false. Denims' unwillingness or inability to substantiate her assertions further emphasize that Denims' primary purpose was not to critique the nuke, but to provide a substitute for it. If the opposite were true, Denims would have taken the time to compile the evidence to substantiate her assertions. After Ethan critiques Hassan for employing rhetoric that reveals he does not consider Israelis to be human, Denims makes the conclusory assertion that Ethan defamed Hassan without any further explication. Frequently, Denims claims that Ethan uses clips out of context, yet she never shows or explains the omitted context. Denims repeatedly claims that Ethan praised Israel's former Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant. This is false, as demonstrated below. On November 6, 2024, Hila critiqued Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by stating, "Just the other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about that he fired him because they had a disagreement." Ethan clarified by stating that he was a moderating voice in the war room. This was correct insofar that Netanyahu fired Gallant, in large part due to Gallant's criticism of Netanyahu's handling of the war in Gaza and the Israeli public protested Gallant's dismissal. On November 8, 2024, after Hila was criticized for calling Gallant a really good guy, Ethan clarified and provided context to the statement, with Hila adding, I feel like the reason I brought it up was mainly to express a frustration with Bibi and him firing the one guy that was somewhat, attempting a moderation. It wasn't really to say that Gallant is a good guy. I shouldn't have used that word. It was a bad choice on my part. And again, here's another example of them easily just going back on a statement and going like, hey, poor choice of words. I'm sorry for what I said. Let's try and move forward. Here's what I really meant. Not just doubling down and going, well, he was a good guy in that moment. Considering stuff that he has said that I was not even thinking of. Denims claims that propaganda does not require lying. The Oxford Dictionary disagrees and defines propaganda as the systemic dissemination of information, especially in a biased or misleading way, in order to promote a particular cause or point of view. I will state that it says especially, which doesn't mean like always. It means the systematic dissemination of information, but it's especially propaganda when it is biased or misleading. But true, like factual things can still be propaganda depending on how they're stated. Denims repeatedly makes the misleading claim that Ethan performed a Nazi salute. Denims intentionally omits the fact that Ethan was making fun of Elon Musk performing a Nazi salute at President Trump's inauguration. After Ethan refutes Hassan's contentions about why the Houthis hijacked the Galaxy leader, Denims claimed that half of what Ethan showed is false without identifying the falsehoods, let alone demonstrating how they were false. Denims claims that it is impossible that 60% of Israelis are from the Middle East. Unsurprisingly, Denims' statement is baseless. A 2019 peer-reviewed study found that well over 55% of Israeli Jews are either fully or partially Mizrahi, Sephardi, or Ethiopian heritage. But more recent data shows that Jewish People Policy Institute confirms that a substantial majority of Israelis self-identify as Mizrahi or mixed origin. Denims misleadingly claims that the Houthis were designated as a terrorist organization only after Hassan's January 16, 2024 interview with al-Haddad. Prior to February 2021, the Houthis were designated as a specially designated global terrorist and a foreign terrorist organization. In February 2021, President Biden delisted the Houthis from both lists. On January 17, 2024, the day after Hassan's interview with al-Haddad, President Biden redesignated the Houthis as an SDGT. After showing excerpts of Hassan's interview with al-Haddad, Denims claims that there was a mistranslation during the interview. It should come as no surprise that Denims fails to identify what was mistranslated, let alone correct the translation. After a section where Ethan critiques Hassan's coverage of the release of Israeli hostages, Denims claims that YouTube does not require censoring such footage and implies Ethan is doing so to intentionally obfuscate the facts. She also makes the outlandish claim that Hamas treated the Israeli hostages well. All of this is false. In order for TEI to monetize the nuke, YouTube required the footage of hostages, such as the release of Israeli hostages and the Houthi takeover of the Galaxy leader, be censored. Further, it is well documented that Hamas killed, sexually assaulted, tortured, and starved the Israeli hostages, including forcing them to participate in grotesque propaganda at gunpoint. These abuses are confirmed by multiple human rights organizations. Abductions, extrajudicial executions, torture, coercion, media appearances, and sexual violence. Amnesty International detailed systemic beatings, humiliation, in denial of medical care and physical abuse of both hostages and their families. The United Nations Human Rights Council found that Palestinian armed groups engaged in war crimes and, in certain cases, crimes against humanity. Later, during the section where Ethan points out that Hamas ordered the hostages to keep waving, Denims claims that the individual who said keep waving directed the statement to someone other than the hostages. Once again, Denims' statement is false. In the video, which Denims claims to have seen, it is evident the statement was directed at the hostages because they immediately start waving in response. Denims repeatedly claims that the New York Times the New York Times and President Biden had to retract claims that rape occurred on October 7th. This is false. The New York Times did not retract its article about rapes occurring on October 7th, while President Biden did clarify his statement that 40 babies were beheaded on October 7th. He never retracted the claims of rape occurring on October 7th. After showing the excerpt of United Nations report on sexual violence on October 7th, Denims claims the report was discredited without supporting evidence. Not only is Denims' statement cruelly and grotesquely false, the United Nations report was affirmed by multiple credible sources, such as Human Rights Watch cited the United Nations report in Human Rights Watch's own report, which also independently found evidence of sexual and gender-based violence during the October 7th attack. Physicians for Human Rights Israel confirmed it would rely on the United Nations report, and in February 2024, the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel published a report that aligned with the findings in the United Nations report. The United Kingdom's Minister for the Middle East cited the United Nations report at the UN Security Council that there was reasonable grounds and clear and convincing evidence of sexual and gender-based violence occurring on October 7th. The European Union Council found that Hamas committed systematic sexual violence as a weapon of war on October 7th. The International Criminal Court prosecutor announced grounds to charge Hamas leaders with crimes against humanity based upon the systematic rape and sexual assault occurred on October 7th. When Ethan discusses Frogan's statements that she wished the soldiers in the United States military get PTSD and lose their health insurance, Denims claims Frogan apologized for the comment immediately afterwards. This is false three times over. Not only did Frogan fail to immediately apologize, she never apologized and even doubled down on the own statement. On or shortly before October 16th, 2024, Frogan made the aforementioned statement. On or shortly before October 20th, 2024, Frogan doubled down on her statement by reacting to it, giggling and claiming her statement was based. Only after Frogan was publicly excoriated for her cruel comments, Frogan made a post on X that attempted to justify her statement. At the end of her post, Frogan typically walked back her vicious attacks on veterans by adding, "I realize that wishing people harm isn't the best way to talk about these issues, and I could have talked about these topics in a more sensitive way." Also, during the same section, Denims attempts to deflect criticism from Frogan by claiming she was emotional due to a recent article about the IDF bulldozing Palestinians. This is false twice over. First, the purported video documenting the alleged bulldozing of Palestinians was debunked as being filmed in Egypt a decade prior. Second, the news report on the perpetuated event occurred on December 2023, i.e. 10 months prior to Frogan's statements on October 2024. And again, I feel like I've said this a lot, and I feel like more people need to point this out, that people need to realize that when we are on like the outside of an issue, we need to be the ones that don't get emotional. Like, it's so stupid to be like, I was getting emotional. Unless you have family in the Gaza Strip or the West Bank, you should be the ones with clear heads being able to talk about it. My hair's all kinds of fucked up. After Ethan discusses Frogan offering to make a cake recreating 9/11, Denims claims that Frogan was giving a 30-day ban for doing so. This is false. Frogan was given a 30-day ban for her involvement in a racial tier list at TwitchCon 2024. This is evidenced by the fact that all of the panelists, including Denims, received the same punishment at the same time. Denims makes a completely unsubstantiated claim that, like Frogan and Hassan, Ethan also makes jokes about 9/11. Denims also makes the unsubstantiated claim that Ethan denied the IDF engaging in systematic rape. This is false. Ethan acknowledged that the IDF engaged in sexual violence, exhibited genuine curiosity about learning more, evaluated additional sources, repeatedly stated that he was not denying the claim, and even Hassan admitted that he misspoke by asserting such claims of systemic rape were well documented. After Ethan criticizes Frogan's podcast for stating that Israelis cannot claim hummus, Denims states that the podcast critique was not about Israelis claiming hummus, but they claimed that to have invented it. This is false, as made clear by the podcast episode itself. The participants, including Frogan, never mentioned inventing hummus, rather they took issue with the Israelis claiming hummus. I don't even understand why that would be like, why would that clarification be like, they're claiming they invented it when they didn't. Even if that was the case, like, who gives a shit? Denims, who is not Jewish, makes the grotesquely bigoted statement that it is anti-Semitic to associate Zionism, i.e. the Jewish right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland, with Judaism. Shortly thereafter, a chatter confronts Denims by explaining that approximately 90% of Jews are Zionists. Without any substantiation, Denims claims that this was derived from a poll with a sample size of 26, and 1/3 of Jews think Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Denims' assertion is completely and totally baseless. We already read about this Pew Research poll, and then the other poll that was made. On the exceedingly rare instances where Denims does cite extrinsic sources, Denims unsurprisingly completely misrepresents the source material. This further evidences she was utterly unprepared to provide criticism of the nuke, and the extent of which criticism suffers as a result. Below are some notable examples. During the section where Ethan discussed forced expulsion of Mizrahi Jews from Arab countries, Denims makes the malicious ahistorical assertion that Jews were treated well in Arab countries, even claiming to be well read on the subject. It is evidence that Denims fundamentally fails to grasp the horrors Jews endured in Arab countries. For example, Denims claims that Vichy France, Nazi-occupied France, sent Moroccan Jews to Israel. To support her claim, Denims pulls up the Wikipedia article entitled History of Jews in Morocco, but strategically conceals the Wikipedia article's title. The Wikipedia article refutes her well-read assertion Vichy France sent Moroccan Jews to Europe to be exterminated, not to Israel. Further, it is painfully obvious that Denims either did not read the Wikipedia article or failed to understand it. The Wikipedia article documents 1,000 years of Moroccan Jews being massacred, subjugated under the Jewish majority, or being subjugated under the Dhimmi apartheid system, including forced to pay jizya, wear certain clothing, live in certain areas, employ restrictive modes of transportation, and prohibited from engaging in certain types of work. Rape, state-sanctioned abuse, destruction of synagogues, ethnic cleansing, and forced conversion. One of the most tragically absurd episodes documented in the Wikipedia article involved the Sultan Suleiman finally allowing the Jews of Fez to wear shoes. So many Jews were slaughtered by their Arab neighbors as a result that the Jews of Fez begged the Sultan to repeal the edict, which he did. Denims makes the incendiary claim that Ethan is scared of Arabic and the Muezzin call. She frantically tries to find a clip to support her assertion but gives up. After someone in her chat sends her a link, she eagerly plays the clip. When it is evident that her claim is grossly inaccurate and mischaracterization, Denims' excitement evaporates as she silently moves on from the point. During her group viewing session, the Nuke takes up approximately 3/4 of the screen for Denims' group viewing session, while Denims sequesters herself in the right-hand corner to de-emphasize her presence. Denims object. Yeah, we read that part. That was the same thing. I think this part is. To be certain, Denims, albeit infrequently and inconsistently, makes a highly transformative use of the Nuke, where the Nuke seeks to expose how Hassan radicalizes people online to be anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. Denims attempts to use the Nuke for the exact opposite purpose, to radicalize her audience to be anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, or anti-Israeli, along with defending Hassan. The transformative nature of these moments are undermined, if not erased, by showing far more of the Nuke than is necessary to achieve this purpose. Some examples are identified above, but also include Denims will repeatedly glorify terrorism and terrorists, such as glorify the Houthis' footage of the hijacking of the Galaxy leader, glorifying the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, attacking a chatter critiquing her glorification of Hezbollah, excusing the homophobia of terrorist groups, glorifying Hamas propaganda, and excusing the anti-Semitism of terrorists. Denims also attempts, albeit unsuccessfully, to excuse Hassan's hypocrisies, such as his highly consumerist spending and his defense of Hamas. Denims repeatedly attempts to justify her own anti-Semitism and, even more absurd, paint Ethan as an anti-Semite. In one instance, Denim goes on a long tangent by showing a clip in its entirety of Norman Finkelstein, with little commentary to justify her own bigotry. Denims also carries water for Clancy, when Ethan critiques Clancy's obsession with e-girls on the Twitch platform. Denim seeks to excuse his lecherous behavior by making the tone-deaf claim that Clancy's obsession with e-girls is a sign of his virility. Wait, what? You're just mad a dude blows loads. What's the problem? You're mad he's a healthy young man who's still blowing ropes? What's the issue here? Or do they mean like virility, like... Yeah. No, yeah. I mean sexual vigor. Yeah, why would she even say that? I think a chat member said it happened after 1948, and she was like, yeah, like it agreed with her point. I think she just reads stuff sometimes, and it's just like, yeah, no, exactly. Thinking that it proves her point because her chat is too stupid to like understand what the point was anyways. Finally, Denim's use of the Nuke was highly commercial. This is evidenced by her statement, well guys, if you enjoyed not giving any views to the terrible video, follow, subscribe, throw a prime if you like the content, if you enjoyed your time here. On 174 separate occasions during her group viewing session, the Nuke, Denims received paid subscriptions, donations, and bits. Each of these paid subscriptions, donations would result in a graphic being superimposed over the Nuke. Denims ran advertisements during her group viewing session of the Nuke and received advertising revenue as a result. On her Twitch page, where Denim's group viewing session was located, Denims placed buttons soliciting paid subscriptions and donations beneath the video of Denims. The clear coordination between Denims and the H3 Snark mods and others to direct as many viewers to her group viewing session of the Nuke to avoid giving views and advertisement of revenue to TEI. As to the second fair use factor, the fact that the Nuke was released a minute prior to Denim's group viewing session does not weigh in her favor. Further, while containing numerous documentary and factual elements, the Nuke contains numerous creative elements, which weighs against fair use. Yeah, we've kind of read through all these parts before. The fourth and most important part, so I'll read this part. The fourth and most important part, fair use factor, fair use factor weighs the most heavily against fair use. It is readily apparent that Denims intended and succeeded to provide a market substitute for the nuke for the reasons set forth below. The statement identified in paragraph 70A, 70PI above, showing the nuke in its entirety with minimal commentary. Starting her group viewing session a minute after the nuke was released to the public, when the interest in the nuke was at its apex. The first inducement post, the second inducement post, and the third inducement post by the H3 Snark mods. Due to Denim siphoning the audience for the nuke to her group viewing session, TI lost the advertising. Okay, yeah, so now we get to the end. And this is the end of it, where basically they're asking for the relief. They're asking for that 150,000. Ooh-wee. Ooh, Nelly. There it is, the big bucks, 150K that they want. That's in statutory damages. It could be more, it could be less. It's whatever their profits are, plus TEI's losses, and as well as their attorney's fees. That also needs to get paid. But that is it. Those are the cases. It only took me, what, 3.5 hours? Not too bad. What shooting ropes mean? Do I actually need to explain it?
Girl, would you like to come back?
Basically, shooting ropes is when you have max of virility.
Do you have your passport? Girl,
and
would you like to come
your
back with Rob to America?
there's no like clean, there's no like nice way to say ejaculate. It means to have a very dense and a high viscosity splooge, if you will. And yes, so that is all three of the sorry, I was getting lost in the sauce in the song. But yes, thank you all so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. I will be back on Monday to do another stream. We'll be talking about some different stuff. So come if you are ready, if you want to see some interesting topics to talk about. I'll let you in on the details then. But thank you so much for watching. This is Captain Quasar signing off.
Beautiful people, put your hands in the air with me right now. Girl, lay it on me. I place no one above me. Oh, take me to your ecstasy. It seems like you're ready. Seems like you're ready. Seems like you're ready. Girl, are you ready? Who's ready to go all the way in the New Year's, huh?